The boy was chosen to inherit the family sword during a clan ceremony. His murderous older sister, to make him the world's strongest, went to any lengths to give him the heart of a phoenix. He was destined to become history's strongest swordsman, but he was envied by someone. A curse was placed within him, crippling his talent and rendering him useless, and there's only one fate for the useless in the Runcandel family, to be asa. The Runcandel family is a swordsmanship dynasty that dominates half of the world. Its members stand at the top of the world with absolute martial power. Anyone without swordsmanship talent cannot survive in the ruthless survival of the fittest Runcandel family. However, by a twist of fate, Jin unexpectedly awakens a forbidden magical talent that the family considers taboo. During a magical experiment, his magic power suddenly spirals out of control. The overwhelming black magic instantly engulfed him and plunged him into an endless void. Just as Jin was in a panic, a massive figure appeared behind him. When he focused his eyes, he saw a being radiating an aura of terror staring at him. The figure extended a large hand and slowly picked Jin up. I'm the god of shadows, soldier, the master of all shadows in this world. I wish to make a contract with you. You will be able to use shadow energy and be immune to all friendship curses. As soon as Soldele finished speaking, he discovered that a curse existed within Jin's body, called the Lost Blade. It is what sealed your swordsmanship talent, but maybe it's because of that I'm attracted to you. Soldele snapped his fingers lightly. The curse on Jin shattered instantly. From now on, all curses will be ineffective against you, and you will become an unparalleled magic swordsman. I have high expectations for you. With that he said, Soldele transformed into wisps of black mist and gradually dissipated. Jin returned to the room to verify that what had just happened was not a hallucination. He grabbed his longsword and rushed out of the room. He drew his sword and swung it horizontally. The sword's body glowed, emitting a gentle hum. The longsword in his hand seemed to become a part of his body. Each time he wielded his swordsmanship, he was constantly entering a new realm. Immediately he imbued the longsword with magic. The longsword instantly erupted with terrifying power. Space trembled as lightning surged. The once useless heir of the Runcandel family would cease to exist. His moment of revenge was at hand. However, at that moment, the surrounding mountains could not withstand the sword energy's aftershock. With a loud bang, they collapsed. Jin was buried under the rubble. He had just awakened his talent but had not had a chance to use it. He ended up dying from his own attack. There was nothing more ridiculous than this. With a heart full of resentment, Jin helplessly closed his eyes, but when he opened his eyes again, everything in front of him seemed so familiar. He was unexpectedly reborn back to the family selection ceremony. Looking at the family head's sword that would determine his fate, Jin slowly crawled forward. In his previous life, he touched this sword by accident, but in this life, this was his own choice. Under the shocked gazes of those around him, Jin resolutely chose the family head's sword. Upon hearing this, his father ordered him to be sent to Hurricane City to study. In the blink of an eye, Jin had already been studying there for 6 years, according to the family rules. Children under the age of 10 are not allowed to leave Hurricane City. One day, a dead pigeon was suddenly thrown into his room. Only those two could have done such a thing. His 2 older brothers appeared in his room. In the previous life, the 2 of them took pleasure in bullying Jin. Later they became notorious serial killers. And now to torment Jin, they were torturing innocent little birds. The 2 of them looked at Jin, who was silent, thinking he was too scared to respond, so they laughed even more triumphantly. Then Hainer swung his fist at Jin. Unexpectedly, Jin caught it. Haytona looked incredibly surprised. Jin glared at Haytona with killing intent. A strange power emanating from his hand blocked Haytona's punch. With a backhand punch, he stunned Haytona. Instantly appearing behind him, he then concentrated shadow energy in his fist. With a backhand punch, he sent Haytona flying. This life, I will no longer tolerate any of you. Just before the dark energy dissipated, Karn, the guardian knight of Hurricane City, heard the noise and rushed over. He saw the black energy in Jin's hand and the 2 unconscious brothers. He asked what was going on. Jin turned his head, exuding a murderous aura, and forcefully said, "They both knocked themselves out." Although Khan did not believe it, he did not dare to refute. Just as he was about to take the 2 brothers to the infirmary, Jin told him to take the 2 brothers outside with him. After casually abandoning them in the heavy rain, he ignored Khan's protests and turned to leave. Khan recalled that the energy in Jin's hands at that time was more like magic. In the swordship famous Runcandel family, magic was considered a taboo by the family. Because of the interference of magic, swordsmanship will struggle to reach its pinnacle, and Jin is the next family head. He must report this to the current family head. Karn paid no attention to the heavy rain. He mounted his horse and immediately rushed to the front lines. Jin watched Karn leave through the window but did not stop him. This life owes much to the contract with Swordray. I was not cursed with forbidden talents. In this life I will shock everyone. The boy awakened the shadow energy that rules all things, but his family mistook it for dark magic and tried to erase it. Because magic is considered a taboo by the family, the Runcandel family is a prestigious swordsmanship family that rules half the world. Its members stand at the peak of the world with absolute martial power. If there were a hindrance like magic, the swordsmanship will be difficult to reach its ultimate peak, and Jin is the next heir to become the family head. Therefore, when he demonstrated what seemed like magical power, his father on the front lines immediately called for the family's elite knights. A large group rushed straight to Hurricane City. He wanted to confirm in person whether Jin had truly used magic, and whether he can become a future asset to the family, and lead the family to greater prosperity. He then called the 2 brothers of Haidan to come forward. But the first thing he said left the two brothers confused. Do you think you were wrong? The two brothers glanced at each other and retorted, we did not do anything wrong. It was Jin who used an unknown power to strike us, and it seems to be a forbidden magic power of the family. The two of them showed a smug expression, but when father heard the answer, his face darkened. Clearly he was not satisfied with this answer. He then solemnly lectured all of his children present. Remember, if you approach it with this attitude, you would not survive in the Runcandel family. Let Jin come to see me. Father is the strongest person in the world right now, but after reaching the demigod realm, he lost all human emotion. He became a heartless person whose only focus is on the prosperity of the family. And the Jin from my past life, who had no talent for swordsmanship, was like an invisible person to him, but now it's different. In this life, he will not let anyone ignore him. Under the watch of many powerful vanguard knights, Jin solemnly kneels on one knee. I pay my respects to the family head. Upon hearing this, his father was slightly surprised. Why do you call me family head instead of father? In response, Jin gave an answer. Today over 100 family members have arrived. Therefore, I believe you are visiting the capacity of the family head, so I refer to you as such. Father was very pleased with Jin's response. However, I am here today for personal reasons. You should still call me father. I will ask you again the question I asked my brothers. What did they do wrong in your conflict? Upon hearing this, Jin clenched his fist. With a determined look, he said, their mistake was not retaliating against me, as a member of the Runcandel family. Regardless of, revenge is a must. Sister 7 Mary beside him let out a wicked smile after hearing this. Clearly Jin's answer pleased her. But after hearing Jin's words, his father fell silent. He immediately dismissed everyone else. His words caused an uproar among the knights. Had the young master passed the head of the family's test, even his 7th sister Mary looked at Jin with new respect. My little brother is not so bad after all. Moments later, only 2 people remained in the hall. His father questioned Jin about the power he had used. Jin, though unsure, could not categorize Soldra's power. It was neither righteous energy nor magic, but after years of research, he was certain it was not magic. He extended his palm, gathering energy, a mass of shadow energy appearing in his palm. Please give this power a name. His father's pupils constricted at the sight. This is actually the power once possessed by the first family head. Shadow energy. Father is shocked beyond belief. Jin not only chose the family head's sword, but also possesses shadow energy. Could he really become the next family head? The boy selected the family head's sword during the trial, and awakened the power of shadow energy which dominates all things. His killer sister, in order to make him stronger, even directly sent him the heart of the phoenix. At this moment, his father was staring in disbelief at the power in Jin's hand. That was actually the shadow kai once possessed by the first family head. The god of shadows, Sorderay, had made a contract with the first family head, but ever since the first family head passed away, it had never appeared again in the Runcandel family. I did not expect that Lord Soldray would return to the family through you. Hearing this, Jin curiously asked, is that Lord Soldra stronger than you? After a moment's thought, his father said in a low voice, dueling the god, never battled a god. So I did not know the answer, but his words revealed a confidence that transcended all things. Do you intend to challenge a god with a mortal body? Truly the domineering heir of the world's strongest. Then his father suddenly reached out and stroked Jin's head. You've greatly surprised me. I'm glad I came to see you today. How will you use this power of shadow energy? Jin placed his hand over his heart and solemnly swore, I want it to be used for the family. The father was momentarily stunned upon hearing the answer, then he burst out laughing uncontrollably. He immediately saw through Jin's lie. With the ruthless actions you've taken against your 2 older brothers, how can you talk about using it for the family? Tell me your real thoughts. Seeing that he could not deceive his father, Jin thought for a moment before slowly speaking, I want to make it work. Upon hearing this, his father fell into silence. After a moment, the words he spoke made Jin's eyes light up. This answer pleases me greatly. Then let me wait and see. He then left the room immediately. The moment the door closed, Jin's highly tense nerves finally relaxed. His father's powerful presence did not make him as relaxed as he appeared, but at this moment he was extremely excited to have passed the test. From now on, not only can he openly use shadow energy, but he's also gained his father's approval. In his past life he lived like a transparent person, but in this life, the name of Jin Runcandel will resound throughout the world. Before leaving, Sister Mary gave Jin a gift, and told him to make sure to eat it all, then he should quickly grow stronger. Jin was shocked when he opened it. It was actually the heart of an immortal bird. He could feel the overwhelming power emanating from it. He could not help but break out in a cold sweat. Sister Mary really is a lunatic. She actually gave this to a 7-year-old child. This is a secret potion that could drive a level 6 mage insane. It not only increases fire resistance and promotes growth, but it's also a necessary ingredient to summon a phoenix. Mary is a 6-star vanguard knight of the family. She is known by the title of Hurricane Mary. In addition, she has another lesser-known nickname, the Madwoman of the Southern Continent. Such an obsessed fighter actually gave him something so precious. It seems she only has one reason, to help Jin become stronger quickly, so he can become her opponent sooner. That night, Jin had the maid make the heart into a soup, but just as he was about to enjoy it, 2 saliva-dripping shadows appeared behind him. The 2 shamelessly tried to share a portion. Jin agreed to their request. As long as they helped him with one task, he would then share the soup with them. And what Jin wanted them to do was dig a tunnel. At the end of the tunnel, a mysterious figure slept in a hidden space. A powerful demonic aura emanated from him. Like an ancient ferocious beast lying in wait, he was once a supreme shadow dragon king, but now he serves a 7-year-old boy. Because the boy received the blessing of the strongest shadow god, he possesses the power of shadow energy capable of dominating all things, and when he can simultaneously control the power of both the shadow god and the dragon king, what kind of terrifying being will he become? After the sea urchin brothers finished digging the tunnel and returned to their room, they eagerly awaited the soup Jin had promised them. However, Jin only gave them one serving each. The two brothers, with dark lines on their foreheads, dared not speak out their anger. They could only grit their teeth and say thank you. Then, the Jin arrived at the end of the tunnel. Behind the wall was the Runcandel family's secret library. He raised his hand, releasing his magic. Powerful magic instantly gathered in his hand. He thrust it forward. A torrent of wild magic erupted. With a loud bang, the wall turned to dust. Jin watched the scene before him with excitement. A door filled with ancient energy appeared. He respectfully chanted an incantation before the door. The son of the Runcandel family comes to comfort Neolali. The great door slowly opens amidst a tremor. Here are collected the ancestral secrets of families annihilated by the Runcandel over millennia. Only the vanguard of the Runcandel family is qualified to enter here. As Jin, what meets his eyes is a vessel. Within, a figure is sealed. Eerie black magic swirls around it. His face even had tiny scales. Could this man not be human? Recalling the opening incantation just now, Jin instantly realized that this was the family's guardian, the black dragon Ulakale. It was said that after being defeated by the first family head, Ulakale fell into a deep sleep. I never thought the legends were true, but he did not have time to think about that now. The secret book is more important to him, but just as he turned around, the Urukai behind him moved ever so slightly. Just as Jin was about to transcribe the secret teachings to study, a sound of footsteps suddenly came from outside the door. He immediately stood up nervously. Just as he was about to peek his head out to look, a dark figure suddenly appeared outside the door. It's actually the black dragon Ural armor. Jin, shocked, quickly processed the situation. This is the guardian dragon of the Runcandel family. As long as I show respect and courtesy, it should not harm me. Son of the Runcandel family, I pay my respects to the family guardian. However, the black dragon Ralk scowled upon hearing this. Furiously it began to curse. What guardian? Who dares to appoint me as their guardian? Damn Lung family. After a fit of anger, Wulakai sullenly crouched on the ground. He only woke up after smelling a pleasant scent. Why is there only a little brat? At this time, he suddenly looked up and stared at Jin. Then he leaned in and began sniffing Jin's body frantically. Why do you smell like shadow energy? Hearing this, a bold guess appeared in Jin's mind. Could it be that the black dragon awakened because of my shadow energy? Lord Ural, is this what you're referring to? Suddenly a ball of black energy appeared. Hailong was petrified on the spot. Soldal, are you serious? My millennial contract partner is actually such a little brat. Ulakai wore an expression of utter despair. I have an agreement with Soldal. According to the agreement, you are the one who will fight alongside me from now on. Now let me formally introduce myself. Suddenly a terrifying magical power surged into the sky. Dark energy covered his arm, transforming it into a claw. I am the agent of Sordre, also a friend. At the same time, I am the last shadow queen of the world's beginning. According to the Millennial Pact, from today onward, I will fight alongside you. In Jin's shocked gaze, an immense magical dragon made a stunning entrance. Tell me your name. A conqueror of Soldal. Jin smiled slightly, suppressing his inner elation. My name is Jin Runcandel. I am the youngest child of the Runcandel family. And the moment the man and the dragon's fists collided, the gears of fate began to turn. The boy received the blessing of the Shadow King, and awakened the power of shadow energy that controls all things. Now he has even signed a contract with the ancient dragon Jade. When he can control both powers at the same time, what kind of terrifying existence will he become? At this moment, Jin still cannot believe it. The Black Dragon Iraq was the strongest ruler 1,000 years ago. For countless years it ruled over this land, but after losing to the first head of the Runcandel family in battle, he fell into a deep slumber after relinquishing this domain. According to Urukai, he and the first head of the family were not enemies, but rather his guardian dragon, and also his friend. A divine contract holder usually has a guardian dragon by their side, but for many years, no one knew what the first head's guardian dragon truly was. If it said that Urukai has been in a deep sleep all this time, it makes sense. And now he has become Jin's guardian dragon. Over the past few months of being together, Jin has tried his best to learn more about Urukai, but so far Jin has only confirmed one thing. That is, he particularly loves eating strawberry pie, and Jin is very curious. Compared to the strongest master in history, the first head of the family, what is his current level? The Black Dragon thought for a moment, then said in a deep voice, you have the same talent as him, but you're still not as good as him. Hearing this, Jin's pupils shrank. Does this mean I will never be as strong as the first-generation monarch? Upon hearing this, Ura Armor could see Jin's frustration. With a pat on Kai's head, he encouraged him, you're still young. As long as you keep training persistently, you can become as strong as him. Maybe you can even surpass him, because the Shadow King's power is limitless. And as a contractor, your power is also limitless. Stay strong. I'll teach you a new skill, Shadow Kai Release. But first, you need to be proficient in magic release and magic movement. This process will take about 2 or 3 years. Before that, I cannot teach you Shadow Energy Release. The next second, a ball of magic suddenly appeared in Jin's hand. This scene immediately startled Alak. But Jin immediately used magic movement again. Alaka looked completely incredulous. Only genius among geniuses can achieve this, so he immediately demonstrated the release of shadow energy to Jin. The shadow energy quickly swept through the entire space. The shadows of all things were under his control. In the following 2.5 years, Jin trained diligently day after day. Soon his 9th birthday arrived. Meanwhile, in the beast forest, the ground was littered with the corpses of ferocious beasts, and an 18-meter-long greatsword stained with blood. All showcased the brutal strength of the woman before them. Yet she now wore a tender expression. She posed a question to her subordinate. What do you think a 9-year-old child would like as a gift? A necklace that drove countless people mad. She gave it to her 9-year-old brother without hesitation. She is a 9-star knight of the Lunkide family. She is the strongest among the younger generation. But she withdrew from the battle for the throne of the Lunkade family, just like her nickname Self-Willed Whale, like a solitary self-willed whale. Therefore, Sister Luna has never paid attention to the other siblings. Even in her past life, the two were like strangers, but what Jin did not expect was Sister Luna actually traveled thousands of miles to celebrate his birthday. This made him suspect her motives. Could it be that his sneaking into the library was discovered, and the first thing Sister Luna did when she saw Jin was to lovingly stroke his head? This immediately made him nervous and at a loss. Seeing Jin's unusual expression, she hurriedly asked if he was sick. But in an instant Luna woke up to the reality. The siblings of the Lunkade family are constantly vying for power. Does Jin think I'm here to restrain him? She lowered her head and apologized to Jin. I was not thinking clearly. You are still young, but I forgot you are also a member of the Lunkade family. Then Luna told everyone else to leave. She wants to talk to Jin alone. It turns out she came here to remind Jin. Jin's excellent performance in front of his father last time attracted the attention of all his siblings. That is to say, when he leaves Hurricane City, they will suppress Jin. She does not want Jin to get caught up in the family's dirty disputes and lose his own happiness. Hearing this, Jin was deeply moved. He had not expected that Luna was only trying to warn him, but why did she ignore me in my past life? Did she think I posed no threat to others? However, Jin said he was not going to give up the family feud, because he had already been assassinated once, so he absolutely cannot retreat. When Luna heard these words, a murderous intent erupted from her, almost tangible. Someone actually wants to strangle you in Hurricane City. She grabbed, desperately wanting to know who that person was, but Jin said he could not tell her, because he himself did not know. But today she also made him realize something. Not all siblings hate him. Upon hearing this, Luna gently pulled Jin into her embrace. I'm sorry, my brother. I've dragged you into the filthy family conflict. Then, she took out a pendant from her chest and gave it to Jin as a gift. She told him to break the blue gemstone on the pendant if he ever encountered danger. No matter where she is, she will immediately appear by Jin's side. After saying goodbye to Luna, Jin came to the library again. However, when Kierik saw the pendant around Jin's neck, she was so startled that she fell to the ground. It turned out that this pendant belonged to the Beast King, Orga. It was a divine artifact that countless people were willing to risk their lives to obtain. Not only could it resist magic attacks below level 5, it can also enhance the holder's power, and it also has a summoning function. Narakara curiously asked, was it given to him by the person with the incredibly powerful aura just now? He should have sensed my aura. Hearing this, Jin was instantly shocked. He could not help but worry whether Luna Ni would tell the others in the family. Yuro spoke without words. She can even give you such a precious gift? How could someone who loves you so much turn around and report you, driving you to the brink of despair? Your sister is someone you can trust completely. No matter what decision Jin makes in the future, she will support him unconditionally. The once most powerful sword and magic dual practice Lunkade family has now abandoned magic to pursue the pinnacle of swordsmanship. This also led to the decline of the Lunkade family. As the only person to awaken Shadow Kai in 1,000 years, can Jin replicate the brilliance of the first family head? Can he lead the family back to its peak? In the daily grind of training, Jin welcomed the day he would leave Hurricane City. During his time in Hurricane City, he not only earned his father's approval, the Phoenix Heart given by Sister Mary, and Sister Luna's care, as well as the contract with the Shadow Dragon King Ulakai. For things he could not have dreamed of in his past life, now he was preparing to leave Hurricane City for his family home. After instructing his maid to pack the books he had copied, Jin went to the library to find Ulakai, reminding him of their departure together the next day. Just as Jin wondered how he would follow, Ulakai however confidently said that he was the legendary Black Dragon. Although he was still relatively weak right now, this little thing would not trouble him. However, Jin was startled when he heard this. Why are you only telling me now about such an important thing as being weak? Urakai waved his hand and replied, you do not actually think I slept for 1,000 years and had no issues, do you? But do not worry. As your guardian dragon, as long as you grow stronger, my power will recover as well. So you need to quickly become a powerful swordmaster like the first family head. The Runcandel family was originally a family of swordmasters, and the first family head was the strongest swordmaster in history. But now hardly anyone knows about this. The Runcandel family now considers magic a forbidden art. It's actually just because of the shameful pact from 1,000 years ago. Then Ulakai said he would also leave an illusion in the library. It would prevent the fact of his departure from being exposed. Upon hearing this, Jin felt relieved. He took out the prepared strawberry pie and red wine and handed them to Ulakai. He reminded him not to get drunk and leave any strange illusions. Ulakai was so excited that he was drooling. He swore and guaranteed there would be no problem. The next day, Jin, escorted by 2 family knights, set off towards the family's sword courtyard. What he thought would be a peaceful journey was suddenly interrupted by a violent jolt of the carriage. He heard the guards shout that they were under attack and urged them not to come out. Then they chased after the attackers. Jin, who could hear these words, was shaken to the core. He hurriedly grabbed Jilly and tried to flee the carriage, because the guardian knights of the Runcandel family would never leave a family member behind, no matter the situation. In other words, one of them must stay and guard him. So those 2 must be impersonators, or they're traitors. There might be some device hidden in the carriage. We must leave here immediately. Hearing Jin's explanation, Jilly suddenly realized her gaze was resolute. With a wave of her hands, a pair of adamantium claws suddenly extended. From now, she is willing to risk her life to protect Jin. The usually gentle and considerate nursemaid turns out to be a hidden 7-star high-level warrior, and in the face of life and death danger, the Jin unexpectedly says something that sends a chill down everyone's spine. Upon realizing that the guardian knight is an enemy in disguise, Jilly picks up Jin and suddenly bursts into action, escaping into the depths of the forest at lightning speed. But Jin asked Jill to take him to the 2 knights. If those 2 knights were enemies, then those fighting alongside them must be our allies. And when they arrived, they indeed saw the true guardians, namely the Yuta magic family of Mitter and the Black Jade mercenary group. Upon seeing that Jin was still alive, the mercenary leader immediately stepped forward to protect Jin. This completely cut off the assassination attempt by the 2 fake knights. In an instant, they were surrounded by the guards. Jilly angrily questioned them. What was their purpose and who was behind it? To her surprise, the man scoffed and laughed loudly. They were nothing more than a bunch of lackeys for the Runcandel family. Seeing this, Jin's eyes revealed a chilling intent to kill. Kill more. Then bring the severed arm of the other person in front of me. Understood. In an instant, Jilly erupted. She shot out like a missile. With endless killing intent, she rushed toward the man in front of her. In just one exchange, she struck 49 blows. She took the man's life on the spot. The accomplice beside him immediately counterattacked upon seeing this, but Jilly swiftly swung a paw with incredible speed. The next second, the man's arm was severed. In just a few breaths, one was dead and the other was injured. Then Jilly dragged him over like a dead dog and approached Jin. The reason their plan failed was that they wanted to become the wet nurse for the Runcandel family. At the very least, it must reach the strength of a 7-star warrior, and to assassinate a child from the Runcandel family, at least 3 8-star knights must be dispatched. At this moment, the man still unwillingly shouted out, "Do not be too..." The era of the Runcandel family is about to end. Unexpectedly, Jin spoke out astonishingly. What you just said is exactly what I was hoping for, because what I want is not the era of the Runcandel family, but the era that belongs to Jin Lunt. Upon hearing this, the man's veins bulged on his face. He then shouted loudly, "Shame on the great Jippel family." Hearing this name, Jin's eyes sharpened. The Jippel family is a magical aristocratic family that dominates the other half of the world. Unlike the Runcandel family, who pursue the pinnacle of swordsmanship, the Jippel family seeks the ultimate mastery of magic. After the death of the first family head 1,000 years ago, they forced the Runcandel family to sign a humiliating treaty prohibiting the use of magic and sealed away everyone's magical power. For the Runcandel family, the Jippel family has been a centuries-old enemy, and these 2 are followers of the Jippel family. But today's events are not in line with the usual style of the Jippel family. It should have been planned by these followers acting on their own. However, what puzzles Jin is that no matter how perfect the disguise, it would be hard to deceive the eyes of a 7-star warrior. Could it be? Did that guy also participate? A simple sentence from the 10-year-old boy made even the powerful 9-star warriors feel uneasy. It also made his subordinates speak and act with caution. This is because the boy is the heir to the world's strongest Lunked family. At only 10 years old, not only is he calm and composed in difficult situations, but he also exudes a strong presence. More importantly, the ambition he revealed in his words earlier, to create an era solely belonging to Jin Lunt, made the mercenary leaders secretly alarmed. Jin expressed that it was thanks to them that he was able to escape safely. They will not be disappointed with the reward once they return to Ding's family. Afterwards, the group set off again. Jilly was still blaming herself for putting Jin in danger. Jin noticed all of this. In her past life, because of his incompetence, Jilly suffered a lot of grievances. She was even driven out of her home, but she still has not given up on Jin, and she even bowed and apologized to him. She said she had not taken good care of Jin. Jin did not want to say harsh words to such a kind Jilly, but things are different now from his past life. He wants to completely overturn everything from his past life. Jilly must also become stronger. So he shouted at Jilly, who was still blaming herself. "Do not blame yourself. This is my... Even though you are my wet nurse. But now you are my only guardian knight. If you are always so indecisive, how can you protect me? So do not make me repeat myself." Hearing this, Jilly immediately understood Jin's intention. He decided to pull himself together and not drag the young master down anymore. Soon after, they arrived at an inn to rest. Once they entered the room, the exhausted Jin collapsed onto the bed and fell asleep. The next morning, Jin was woken up by the sound of a cat meowing. He turned his head to look outside the window. A black cat was lying on the windowsill. He stared at him with a contemptuous gaze. Jin suddenly realized, could he be the black dragon bird? Thinking this, Jin could not help but laugh out loud, so his so-called method was to turn into a cat. Hearing this, Urokai was enraged and embarrassed. Then Jin opened the window and let him in. The black cat then began transforming through gritted teeth. In the next second, the black cat instantly turned into Ural-kai. Fuming, he wanted to settle the score with Jin, but he suddenly tripped over a raised floorboard. With a loud thud, he crashed into the windowsill, getting up close and personal. The huge noise immediately brought Gilly rushing in, breaking down the door upon seeing a stranger in the room. She immediately mistook Ural-kai for an assassin. She instantly unleashed her wolverine claws. Blue magic surged out in an instant. He was about to press the birdman to the ground and tear him to pieces. Seeing this, Jin quickly pulled Gilly back, but upon hearing Gilly's name, Ural-kai instantly perked up. He even forgot the pain in his head. He quickly struck a pose he considered charming and flamboyant. Extending his hand gently towards Gilly, he said, "I finally found you, my strawberry." Seeing this, Jin felt a headache. The situation was uncontrollably heading in a strange direction. He was once the strongest shadow dragon king 1,000 years ago, but now he was helplessly in love with a maid. After stopping Gilly, Jin helplessly began the introduction. This is the guardian of the Runcandel family, the black dragon Urake, and when he introduced Gilly to Urake let out a mischievous laugh. "I know, she is my beloved strawberry pie." Jill was confused as to why Ural-kai referred to her as strawberry pie, but the next moment she realized it turned out that the strawberry pies Jill made for Jin every day were eaten by Ural-kai. Then, Jin shared a series of events with Jill. She learned that Jin had not only received the blessing of the Shadow King, she also possesses magical talent, and she has a guardian dragon. As Jin's wet nurse, she feels very happy. But upon hearing that the sound just now was Ural armor falling and making a fool of himself, the respect she had moments ago quickly faded away. Can we really trust this person? I guess. Next, the two of them arrived safely at the middle transport hub. They expressed their gratitude to the mercenaries. After presenting the credentials of the Runcandel family, they were invited to the VIP lounge. They would be able to teleport to their family in 2.5 hours. Just as they sat down in the VIP lounge, Ural-kai jumped off of Jin and shamelessly lay on Gilly's lap, drifting off into a sweet dream. Then someone else entered the room. Upon seeing the totem on the newcomer, Jin's eyes narrowed. It was actually from the Jippel family, the sworn enemy of the Runcandel family. The white-haired boy went straight to sit opposite Jin, his face filled with arrogant mockery, saying, "I've actually run into someone I hate here." However, Jin found the boy before him somewhat familiar. At this moment, Ural-kai, who had turned into a black cat, caught his attention, so he reached out his hand to tease it. Unexpectedly, Ural-kai immediately gave him a vicious scratch. The two guards accompanying him immediately drew their swords when they saw this, but he stopped them. The young man could not help but think to himself, "I did not expect that despite my provocation, this young master of the Runcandel family would remain so composed." He stood up and walked in front of Jin. "My name is Belladin. I formally apologize for my earlier rude behavior." Upon hearing this name, Jin immediately remembered his identity. In his past life, he was a genius magician, and also the heir to the next head of the Jaipur family. As for Jin in his past life, he is an unattainable existence. I never expected that in this life we would meet when we were young, and both of us are heirs of our respective families. Jin pushed Ural-kai aside with a light laugh. "Although you were joking just now, if those two actually drew their swords, you would lose 2 attendants on this journey, and you will lose 2 fingers." Belladin laughed in disbelief and waved his hand. "This is too scary." However, Jin's expression turned grim. "Do you think I'm joking?" Belladin felt a cold chill rise from behind him, but he still forced himself to stay calm. "Do not go around cutting the fingers of the Jippel tribe members, otherwise it will give both families a big headache." To this, Jin scoffed playfully. "Do you think they'll start a war between families because of a little squabble between children?" At these words, Belladin fell silent. But the next moment he burst into laughter. "I learned a trick from you today. I will repay you someday." Jin immediately said, "No need for later. Just now, I hope you can keep quiet. Do not disturb my rest." Hearing this, Belladin was instantly speechless. He could only hide to the side and secretly observe Jin. This guy will definitely be an amazing person in a few years, if the two families were not enemies. I even want to be friends with him. However, Jin felt helpless. Is this guy possessed? He's still so excited even after almost having his finger cut off. 2.5 hours later, a voice came from the radio. Teleportation is about to begin. Meanwhile, a huge blue magical power enveloped the entire room. At this moment, Belladin suddenly stood up. "Jin Runcandel, we'll meet again another time." "Forget it. Let's not meet again." Meanwhile, the butler Pietro had already been waiting here. "The journey must have been tiring. You've worked hard. Welcome to the ancestral home of the Runcandel family. The Runcandel family is a prestigious swordsmanship family that dominates half the world, and the sword garden, as the symbol of the family's honor, only those who have made significant contributions to the family can leave their sword here." Jin's wished the same. But in his past life, he had no talent for swordsmanship. He even fantasized that with enough effort, he might succeed, but the cruel reality ultimately shattered it mercilessly, and in this life, he was determined to completely overturn everything from his past life. Then, Jin came before his father, mother, and many brothers and sisters. Ural-kai perched on Jin's shoulder was quite conspicuous. His father seemed to sense something unusual about him. "Is that a cat you found?" But Jin corrected his father's words. "It's something I earned." Jin's clear and bold answer earned his father's approval, because when a member of the Runcandel family gains something, they should show a strong attitude. His mother cradled the Urala armor in her arms. She asked Jin what the cat's name was. His name is Runcandel. Jin's response instantly set the siblings beside him off. He actually gave the lowly animal the Kide family name. Their father signaled for everyone to quiet down. He questioned Jin on why he did that. Jin replied seriously, "Because this is the first cat I've adopted. I will take responsibility for him. So I believe his name must have meaning." The father found Jin's answer interesting. "But do you understand the meaning of the surname Runcandel?" Jin straightened his back and firmly stated, "I understand. If anyone tries to hurt Nabi, I must make that person pay with my own hands." The father pointed toward the brothers behind Jin. "Look at the way your siblings are gritting their teeth. Seems like you're good at making enemies." But Jin does not care about this at all. A confident smile appeared on his face. "That's true, but I'm also very good at killing enemies." Hearing this, my father grinned. "Did you hear that? If you do not want to be trampled by the powerful Jin, then you better pull yourself together." 4 years have passed in the blink of an eye. At this point, Jin has become a 2-star knight. After finishing his morning training, it's time for lunch. The instructor hoped he could join the young masters, but Jin waved his hand, indicating he did not want to compete with them at the dining table. A moment later, Balap brought lunch to Jin. He is a trainee of the Kind family's guardian knights. In the previous life, he was eliminated in the next training session and expelled from here. Afterward, he joined another famous swordsmanship school called Halon. Then he became a lackey of the Bymouth Empire. Eventually, he turned into a cruel butcher. Perhaps he saw a shadow of himself in Balap. Eugene decided to help him stay for the next training session, because living a life full of unfortunate, miserable experiences is enough for one lifetime. Currently, Gene's abilities are at 2 stars in influence, 4 stars magic, and 2 stars in swordsmanship. At this rate, his swordsmanship will reach 3 stars within 2 years. But before that, he has to survive Luna's devilish training first. Just how brutal is the training for the most talented swordsman from a renowned family? He not only has to endure the 9-star warrior sister's daily devilish training, but also has to activate the mind's eye, a skill only achievable by 7-star knights. As a 2-star knight, Gene's outstanding performance makes him arguably the greatest talent in Lunkide history. The focus and endurance he displays far surpass those of a 2-star knight. At this rate, he might be able to understand the mind's eye within a few years. After 2.5 months of training, the day of the Guardian Knight assessment has arrived. This is also Gene's chance to prove himself. As long as Gene can defeat the top 10 in this assessment consecutively, he can enter the intermediate training class next year. Jin then noticed Balap's state. Although he will help Balap avoid being expelled from here, he also hopes that he can become more confident. Then the assessment began. After a fierce competition, the top 10 strongest contenders have emerged. They will each face Gene in battle. Gene's highest winning streak is 8. He only needs to win 2 more matches today. His most important opponent, however, is Misa, the strongest elite knight among the top 10. She's the key to Gene's assessment. Only Meisha's figure suddenly surged forward. With a sharp strike, her sword went straight for Jane's face. Feeling the force transmitted through the blade, Jane was secretly alarmed. She's stronger than last time, but not strong enough that I cannot defeat her. The real problem right now is, after defeating Meisha, I still have to face 8 more opponents, so I have to conserve my strength as much as possible. Jane's attacks came relentlessly like a violent storm. He used the same technique every time. This made Meisha sense something was wrong. Young master's swordsmanship has always been so varied. Why is he doing this now? But no matter how much she guessed, she could not figure out Gene's intentions. Then, in the next moment, an unbelievable thought crossed her mind. Could it be that he thinks I will definitely lose? So you do not need to go all out? I really underestimated you. This also ignited Misa's fighting spirit. Bring it on. Young master. Immediately the two clashed fiercely once again. Misa raised her wooden sword and leaped into the air. She swung it down towards Gene. The clash of swords made a tremendous noise. Unexpectedly, the magic sword in Meisha's hand was sliced in half by Jin. She looked in disbelief at the broken wooden sword in her hand. Immediately after, Jan's sword tip was pressed against Meisha's throat, declaring her victory in this battle. When Meisha saw Jan's wooden sword, she suddenly realized. It turns out that Gene's attacks always landed on the same spot. That's why her wooden sword broke. But this requires unparalleled perseverance and precision. Is this the strongest genius Lunkade has ever seen? Then, after witnessing Gene's overwhelming victory over Meisha, the remaining 8 contestants felt even more pressure. And that was exactly Gene's plan from the beginning. Make them think they cannot defeat him in a head-on confrontation, so they'll hesitate and be timid. Just like that, Gene successfully defeated 10 opponents. But then Gene turned his gaze to Bellup. He picked up his magic sword again. Then he raised his long sword, pointing it at the crowd. Bellup Shumitz, in your current state, you cannot survive in the Lunkade family. Come out and fight me. I will defeat you completely. Once we were close friends like brothers, now you coldly draw your sword against me, even crazily demanding a fight to the death, because only Gene knows. In the future, Balap will become a heartless, murderous monster. He single-handedly slaughtered the entire empire, yet now he is an incredibly weak and gentle person. He was eliminated and expelled from the Lunkide family during the assessment. Ultimately, he fell into darkness. To prevent Balap from going down the wrong path again, Jin decided to challenge him, to awaken his amazing swordsmanship talent. Looking at the timid Balap, Jin immediately raised his wooden sword and launched an attack. Balap just stood there, passively defending, waiting. He still could not understand why Jin had suddenly become like this. The next moment, Jin swiftly moved and launched another attack. The two swords clashed repeatedly. After Belope blocked Jin's attack again, Jin seized the moment when Belope was momentarily off guard, and swiftly swept his leg in a wide arc. He kicked him to the ground in an instant. He looked at Jin, who seemed like a completely different person, filled with fear. "Young master, why are you doing this to me?" Jin's expression was cold. I want to fight you. I could have killed you just now. Get up. I'll give you one more chance. Bring out your strongest power and defeat me." Upon hearing this, Belope finally realized that Jin was serious. The longsword in his hand radiated a golden light. Seeing this, the onlookers were shocked. That was the righteous aura that could only be awakened by mastering the sword's true meaning. Immediately, they urged the instructor to stop the duel. If this continues, Jin will be in danger. But Jin gave a low command: "Do not move. Everything you've seen and heard today must remain confidential forever." Belope still hoped that Jin was joking at this point. "Young master, is this really what you want?" But Jin's cold response shattered his last shred of hope. "Come on, give it your all and take a shot." Upon hearing this, Belope gritted his teeth and made up his mind. "Young master, you made a wrong decision." In the next moment, he unleashed his golden body power and charged at Jin. Jin picked up his longsword to defend, but in just one exchange, Jin's longsword was sliced in half like tofu. Jin quickly pulled back. He had not expected that Belope, who was not even going all out, would be this strong. Although Jin had known he was powerful, he had not expected him to already be able to use righteousness. With one successful strike, Belope pressed the attack. However, Jin suddenly unleashed an unimaginable speed. His sword struck the hilt of Belope's sword. The immense force caused his hand to go numb. Even the longsword could not be held. At that moment, Jin swiftly moved behind Belope and grabbed his neck. Although Belope struggled desperately, it was to no avail. But then Jin let go of Belope. He lay on the ground gasping heavily for air. "Did not you say it would be a fight to the death? Why did you Do you think it's fun to mock others?" Belope shouted hoarsely, questioning Jin loudly. "Why are you treating him like this?" Jin crouched down, his expression complicated. "It's hard for me too to do this to you, but there's one thing I'm sure of, and that's that only when you become strong can you afford to care for the weak. You're weaker than me. You're even kinder than I am. Although I really like your kind nature, kindness alone cannot survive in this hell. Belope, I hope you can grow stronger, strong enough to protect your kind heart, and be with everyone here. I'm so sorry for doing something so extreme to you." And Belope, after hearing this, was already crying like a puddle of tears. At this moment, the maids happened to bring in lunch. Seeing that the training was not over, they asked if Xing should come later. Jin gestured for them to bring it over now. At this point, Belope looked like a frustrated and wronged little wife. "Young master, please go get your lunch yourself today." Jin smiled indulgently. "Okay, today I'll bring your lunch over as well." The world-ending demon who had killed countless people in a past life now devoted herself completely to a man. It was because Jin defeated Belope with extraordinary strength, and Belope's hidden swordsmanship talent was finally recognized by everyone. When Jin's father heard about this, he burst into laughter. So this is the belief Jin holds dear. Though he walks the path of a tyrant, he also cares for the weak, so his father immediately made a decision. He would test whether Jin's belief was worthwhile. "Pass on my order," assigned Jin his first task. Meanwhile, Jin entered the intermediate training class at 15 and became a 3-star knight, but after becoming an intermediate trainee, he could no longer use a wooden sword. Therefore, he had to choose his own sword. Luna then volunteered to choose an exceptional sword for Jin, but when Jin saw it, he was stunned. Luna pulled out an 18-meter butcher knife. She said that this was the sword she used in her youth. It was called Bellis, the Sword of Slaughter. It is also the prototype of the weapon she uses now. Jin was momentarily speechless. "Sister Luna, although I'm really grateful for you choosing a sword for me, I feel like this sword might not be the right one for me." Luna, upon hearing this, immediately felt a bit down. "It's okay. I was just joking with you." But it's clear she's about to wear her disappointment on her face. Then she mentioned another sword, the Jade Emperor's sword, which only Jin could wield. Jin's eyes lit up when he saw the sword. It was actually the Lising sword, the head of the family's sword. Bragdaminti, the weapon once used by the strongest first-generation family head. Jin lovingly caressed the Bradamant. This was originally the sword he would go to any lengths to obtain. He never expected that Luna would give it to him, because both Bradamant and Barasata are the best swords for wielding Shadow Kai. If he had chosen this sword himself, it would have faced strong opposition and protests from his other siblings. Now Luna actually gave him this sword. This left Jin unsure of how to repay Luna. Hearing this, Luna smiled gently. "What are you talking about repayment for? You're my most beloved little brother." That night, after returning to his room, Jin excitedly showed Rock the Bladament. To his surprise, Uruk poured cold water on him, because you need at least 3-star Shadow Kai to fully utilize the Bradamant, and Jin only has 2 stars right now. He can only imitate the Awaking the Sword technique at most. Jin stubbornly insists that he's about to reach 3-star Shadow Kai. He'll be able to use it soon. Arrogant. Listen up, Balsada and Brand. These 2 swords cannot be used casually. Shadow Kai 3 stars is only the minimum standard. Until you reach 5 stars, they can only be used as ordinary swords. Aura Armor gave Jin a stern warning. However, Jin, unwilling to accept, shook off Aura Armor's hand. "Then I will reach Shadow Kai 5 stars within a year. Is that acceptable?" Hearing this, Aura Armor's anger skyrocketed. He grabbed Jin by the head. Do you treat cultivating Shadow Kai like drinking water and eating food? I'm saying this for your own good? Jin quickly agreed verbally, but his hand secretly reached for Yula Kai's favorite comic. He picked it up and was about to tear it apart. Seeing this, Ula Kai immediately got scared. Please, put the book down. Let's talk it out. Just as the two were playfully roughhousing, Jilly suddenly barged in. She told that instructor Galen had assigned him his first mission. He needed to head over. Soon after, Jin arrived at the mission operations room. This mission is to search the southern region of the Gon Kingdom. It includes 10 junior trainees including Jin, but that area is very close to the Orc lands. Such a difficult mission should not be assigned to junior trainees. Moreover, the team members are either trainees with mediocre scores or unpredictable bugs. It really seems like someone's deliberate instruction. Jin suspected that the news of his duel with Balop had reached his father's ears. That's why this task was assigned to him as a test. Since that's the case, I will prove to him just how firm my beliefs are. As a highly regarded genius heir of the Runcandel family, Jin was assigned a task by his father right after becoming a 3-star knight. The task was to search for and rescue the heir of the Bill family from the Kingdom of Gan. Although this mission seems simple at first glance, but it hides a deadly danger, because the mission location is on the border of the Orcish territory. The slightest mistake could mean death. Just then, Balop rushed to tell Jin some bad news. Team 2 has been attacked. 3 known human enemies. But 3 people alone would not dare attack the Runcandel family. There must be more enemies. Eugene ordered 2 team members to return to camp and stay on alert. He immediately went to rescue them himself, although he did not know who the enemy was. Since they dared to provoke someone from the Runcandel family, Jin would make them pay the price. Soon after, Jin discovered some uncoagulated bloodstains on the road. From the traces, it appears that the members of Team 2 fought with the enemy here and then fled, and based on the footprints, there is only one enemy. A bloodstained bandage was also found. It seems that a member of Team 2 bandaged a wound here. After being discovered by the enemy, they continued fleeing westward. Jin instructed Balop to follow him and pursue. The other person returned to the camp to report the situation. After their pursuit all the way, they finally discovered the second team members in a forest, but there was no sign of Meisha. And there was an additional attacker. Jin drew out the flying knife. Balop, close your eyes first. After 2 seconds, attack the guy on the left. Roger that. Jin enveloped his dagger in shadow energy. Weapons enveloped in shadow energy have increased sharpness and killing power. It also reduces their presence. He silently moved towards the enemy on the right. In an instant before the enemy could react, he pierced his neck. Simultaneously, Balop swiftly appeared behind another enemy. They quickly reacted. He blocked Balop's lethal strike. However, Jin unsheathed his longsword. He struck the man a heavy blow from behind. The man was immediately captured and trampled underfoot by Jin. The surviving team members saw Jin arrive. He quickly told Jin that Meisha had been captured by them. The man begged Jin for mercy at this moment, but Jin coldly gave him 2 choices. Tell me all your information, and I will only kill you. Say nothing, and everyone related to you will die. Upon hearing this, the man fell into confusion, but after hearing Jin vouch in Runcandel's name, he chose to compromise. Please do not hurt my family. We are the organization known as Kinjiro. Hearing this name, Jin's pupils constricted. In his past life, they were an extremely active terrorist organization. They massacred the entire Gan Kingdom, and their goal was to make their king the king of the world. Misa was brought back to their branch in the Beastman Lands population control area. There were about 24-star warriors and mages there. After getting the information he wanted, Jin ended the man's life with a single strike. He then sent everyone back to the camp to rest before requesting support from the family. He, on the other hand, went alone to rescue Misha. The trainees immediately spoke out to stop Jin. It's too dangerous for you alone. The enemy outnumbers you, and their strength has all reached 4 stars. Young master, you do not need to risk your life for our trainees. But Jin, as a descendant of the Runcandel family, I cannot ignore this matter. And I am stronger than you think. Any further objection will be dealt with as insubordination. Then he handed over command to the strongest, Balop. After everything was explained, Saojin set out alone on the mission to rescue Meisha. I hope it's not too late. In the renowned Runcandel family, known for its swordsmanship, there was an heir with top-tier magical talent. He was also the only one with Shadow Kai Shadow Junyu. However, during his first mission, an accident occurred. A terrorist organization attacked his squad and captured Meisha. For this, Jin went alone to the enemy camp to rescue her. The enemy has about 24-star warriors, and currently Jin's strength is 3 stars in swordsmanship, 4 stars magic, 3 stars in shadow energy. Although he's growing quickly, it would still be very difficult for him to defeat so many enemies on his own. Magic surged in Jin's hand, transforming into a fierce wind. Then he slammed it onto the ground. Instantly, it turned into a net, tracing the enemy's tracks. Quickly, Jin determined that the enemy had gone towards the grassland. He immediately pursued relentlessly. Suddenly, an arrow shot towards Jin. Jin swiftly used wind magic to alter the arrow's trajectory. At the same time, 3 enemies suddenly emerged from the bushes and charged. Jin's wind magic became even more violent in his hands. With a swing of his arm, he unleashed a sharp wind blade. It immediately took the life of the man leading the charge. At the same time, another enemy rushed towards Jin, swinging down. Jin drew his sword. With a swift counterattack, he sent the enemy flying. The wizard at the back conjured a raging flame. He shouted for his companions to get out of the way. In the next moment, a fireball shot straight toward Jin. It tightly bound Jin's arm. The man in the mask smirked, pleased with himself. He thought he had successfully restrained Jin's movements, but he never expected that Jin was unaffected and struck back with a sword, slashing him. He immediately grabbed the fuse. With a strong pull, he yanked it back. The crystal suddenly slipped out of the mage's hand. He then quickly charged forward. Seeing that the fire magic had no effect on Jin, he immediately cast ice magic, attempting to pierce through Jin. At that moment, the pendant on Jin's chest suddenly lit up. A shield formed a blue light curtain, blocking all the incoming ice spikes. In the elderly man's terrified gaze, the sword sent him to the afterlife. Afterward, Jin followed the trail they left behind and arrived at Jinjiro's main base. Jin first created a disturbance to divert their attention. He conjured a flame spell in his hand and instantly set the entire forest on fire. He then used wind magic to blow the fire into the enemy's camp. Taking advantage of the chaos, he infiltrated the camp. The enemy leader immediately ordered the mages to use water magic to put out the fire. However, the mages were unable to extinguish the flames. At this point, he realized someone had deliberately set the fire. Just as he ordered a search, Jin silently approached him from behind. The next moment, Jin dealt with the bald man and got the cell key. Moments later, Jin discovered a basement cell. Sure enough, Misa was imprisoned inside, but just as he untied Misa's ropes and was about to escape, a violent shock suddenly came from above. At this moment, Meisha suddenly made a serious request to Jin. They've truly encountered danger. She asked him to abandon her. She absolutely could not let Jin die here. Jin, however, said they should get out first. When they just stepped outside, they saw a ground covered with corpses, and after seeing the wounds on the bodies, Jun immediately guessed this was Orkhan's. Just then, a huge sound of footsteps reached their ears. A massive werewolf suddenly appeared before them. Meisha was about to tell Jin to leave first, but before she could finish, she was knocked unconscious by Jin. After making sure Meisha was safe, Jin stood up and faced the bloodthirsty werewolf in front of him. Little demon, did you start the fire? That's right, I'm the son of Xilong Luncade. Jun Luncade, state your name. Or, hear this, the werewolf showed a dangerous smile. It turned out to be from the Luncade family. How powerful is the legendary sword of the strongest magic swordsman in history? Jin forcibly awakened the sword's spirit with his 3-star strength. He actually killed the powerful 6-star magic wolf with one strike. The wolf tribe is a battle-born race, created for slaughter. Their average strength is at least 6 stars, and the first head of the Luncade family. They killed Habiel, the wolf lord they worshipped as a god. Therefore, the wolf tribe holds an undying hatred for Luncade. With Meisha, Jin has no chance of escaping their pursuit. The only is to fight to the death. The monstrous wolf let out a savage laugh and launched a surprise attack. The giant hammer smashed a 2.5-meter deep crater into the ground. Jin narrowly dodged the strike. The demon wolf, however, did not give him a moment's respite. Swung a second blow straight for his face. Jin hurriedly raised his sword to block, but the immense force made his arm tremble uncontrollably. After another round of clashes, Jin knew he could not win in terms of strength against the demon wolf, but he still had a winning trump card. That's the pendant along with the magic and shadow Kwai that Luna gave me. But Jin did not want to waste the pendant on a crisis of this level. But the damage from his 4-star magic could not affect the wolf demon either. Moreover, if the family sent someone to investigate, it would expose his use of the family's forbidden magic, so he could only choose to use Shadow Kai to unseal the divine sword. But Ulukai had sternly warned him not to do so before his Shadow Kai reached 5-star level. You must never use Shadow Kai to awaken the sword. If you do, the Shadow Ki will go berserk and you will die. But in the current situation, he has no other choice. The demon wolf's attacks are becoming more and more violent. Jin is gradually losing his ability to hold on. At this moment, the demon wolf feels victory is within reach. Your sword is quite sturdy, though it does not quite match the black sword that symbolizes your family. Then he grabbed the giant hammer, leaped high, and slammed it down on Jin. It's over. The little brat from the Luncade family. At the moment of life or death, Jin struggled to recall the feeling of awakening the sword, pouring all his inner energy into the blade. Awaken. Bladament. At the very moment when the demon wolf's attack was about to land, the entire world suddenly grew dark. Terrifying shadowy energy submerged Jin. The demon wolf only saw darkness before him. In the next instant, countless lines made of shadow energy bound him. At the same time, his 5 senses were sealed. Then Jin's sword swung down. The overwhelming shadow energy instantly dissipated into nothingness. Only the shadow energy surrounding the sword remained, emitting a powerful aura. The demon wolf collapsed helplessly to the ground. He never understood what exactly Jin had done until his death. But as soon as Jin defeated the demon wolf, the shadow energy began to rampage. He felt as though he was about to be devoured by the shadow energy. He could no longer suppress the raging power. Waves of dark energy erupted from his body, transforming into inner demons that constantly eroded his consciousness. Just then, a figure appeared before Jin. Damn brat, I told you before. Forcibly awakening the sword would inevitably come at a price. Are you just going to sit here and wait to die? Get up, did not I tell you what to do? Jin bit his lip to stay alert. He immediately began preparing for shadow energy release. He had always been affected by the surrounding shadow energy and unable to complete the shadow energy release. But now it's his only way to save himself. He tried again. Jin finally dispersed the shadowy energy. Worried that there might be further complications, he quickly stood up and prepared to take Meisha back, but suddenly there was a noise from the side. A figure emerged from behind the ruins. Jin thought it was a remnant of Jin Jielua's faction and immediately drew his sword. The figure immediately knelt down in fear. "I am the heir of the built family." It turned out this was the rescue target for Jin's mission this time. The boy received the favor of the Shadow God. He awakened the power of shadow energy, the force that dominates all things. He also received the sword of the strongest swordmaster in history. With his 3-star strength, he unlocked the seal of the divine sword. With just one strike, he instantly killed the powerful 6-star demon wolf. But Jin nearly died from the backlash of the shadow energy. Still, he successfully completed his mission. He found the heir of the Burt family. Jin wondered why he'd been kidnapped here. Sam said he followed his girlfriend here, but his girlfriend died 2.5 years ago. But this person was identical to his girlfriend in every way. Jin immediately guessed it was the work of the shapeshifter, Babar. This is their second encounter since leaving Hurricane City. Was there a connection between them? Jin decided to find an opportunity to meet him in person. The next day, as soon as he returned to the family home, Jin felt a chill down his back. He turned around and pretended to greet Uraka politely, but Uraka bit his hand sharply. Jin threw him against the wall, unable to shake him off. "Why are you biting me?" Uraka shouted angrily, his head still swelling. "Are you out of your mind? Or has your brain gone haywire?" Jumping up and throwing a bunch of punches. "How many times have I told you? Do not forcefully awaken the divine sword, or you really will die." Then Ural's armor transforms into human form and lifts Jin, shaking him violently. "You're the only contractor of soldiers. No situation is worth risking your life for." Jin was immediately shouted at after retorting a couple of sentences. "Is the pendant around your neck just for decoration? Why not use it?" But Jin gently held onto the pendant, saying that who knows what powerful enemies they might face in the future. It would be a waste to use it now. Upon hearing this, Ural's armor felt like it had been struck by lightning. He was so angry that one of his pursuers nearly took him out. Jin wondered how Wulakai knew he had unlocked the sword. "Your shadow energy went from 3 stars to 4.5. Do not you understand why? You're still safe thanks to Soldere's protection. There have been 11 people, including you, who've experienced shadow energy rampage, but 9 of them are dead." Jin curiously asked. "Besides him, the first family head," Alaka pointed to himself, "and then there's me." Jin waved his hand dismissively. "So you're just like me. I'm gonna take a shower first." Alaka furiously wanted to starve Jilly for a few days to teach her a lesson, but Jilly replied, "Then I'll go prepare something for the young master." Immediately Ulakai was left alone, confused in the wind. On the other side, the news of Jin defeating the Wolf clan reached the ears of the 2 brothers and sister. Annie could not believe Jin had that kind of strength. She thought the White Wolf clan was just too weak. Lyle, on the other hand, believed Jin was fabricating the story. But the Tona brothers were very nervous, because Jin was about to join the intermediate class. They will inevitably be irritated by him again. Just thinking about these 2 brothers is frustrating. At this moment, Annie decided to lend them a hand. She would lend them her slave from the intermediate class to help them suppress Jin. The Tana brothers were overjoyed, but Annie showed a dangerous smile. "But if it fails, they will have to accept punishment. My dearest brother." Jin, fresh from a shower, is assessing his own strength. His shadow is currently at 4 stars, but to perfectly utilize his shadow he needs to reach at least 6 stars in swordsmanship within 5 years. 6 stars in swordsmanship qualifies one as a sword master. 7 stars places one among the ranks of masters. Reaching 8 stars represents a qualitative leap. Among the 2 billion people in the mainland, there are fewer than 100 who are 9-star or 10-star strong. Additionally, there is one person who surpasses the level standard. That is the demigod father, known as the Holy Knight Creator. Jin's goal in this life is to become someone who surpasses his father. But the current problem is that after advancing to the intermediate class, he will face suppression from Brother Tonar and the others. The trainees in the beginner class are young, and their abilities are about the same, so the atmosphere is harmonious. But the intermediate class is a world where strength rules. Jin's approach must not be lenient. There's only one thing he has to do: to dominate the intermediate class with strength. Just for glancing at Jin in the crowd, the man had his arm brutally severed. Because this is the Lunkide family, where strength is paramount, Jin, as the heir to the Lunkide family, will mercilessly strike back against any hostility. And today is the day Jin enters the intermediate class. Before advancing to the intermediate class, Jin gathered the trainees who would be entering the intermediate class with him. He sternly told everyone that factional struggles would begin from the intermediate class onward. "You all belong to my faction, so you will be bullied and made things difficult for, but you do not need to be too afraid. Once I settle the whole intermediate class, no one will dare to bully you. But until then, at least make sure you go around in groups of 3. Try to avoid acting alone." After hearing everyone's unanimous answer, it became that day arrived quickly. The instructor announced the arrival of the new recruits to everyone and informed them of the rules for newcomers. "Here, besides killing everything else, you can all handle it yourselves. I will only teach you swordsmanship and assess your strength." That said, he suddenly shouted loudly, "The trainees of the former intermediate class, what have I always emphasized? The Lunkade family does not need weaklings." The response was deafening like a tidal wave. The oppressive slogans echoed throughout the square. Jin let out a soft sigh. Such a malicious show of power. He then focused his gaze on the Tona brothers in the crowd. The fierce-looking men next to them caught Jin's attention. It seemed like they'd been in the central class for many years. It could not have been the Tona brothers who personally recruited them. It must have been people from Sister Annie's side. Although they wanted to extinguish Jin's sharpness, Jin was about to show them that they were completely wrong. Jin walked straight toward the Tona brothers. The two brothers were instantly frightened. They could only reassure themselves that they had Annie's support. Stay calm. Jin then drew his sword. Before anyone could react, he severed the man's arm. This act shocked everyone present. Even the man himself stared in disbelief at his severed arm. The next moment, intense pain flooded his mind. He could not help but kneel to the ground. Sheathing his sword, Jin coldly said, "Call the medics." Seeing this, the Tona brothers also drew their swords, questioning Jin why he suddenly started attacking people. But Jin ignored it. He asked the big man for his name instead. "Do you know why I'm attacking you?" Tonar, seeing that Jin was not paying attention to him, raised his sword and pointed it at Jin. "Are you ignoring us? Draw your sword." However, Jin's eyes gleamed with a cold, murderous intent. "Brothers, I am talking to Kazin. If you want to duel with me, I will gladly accept later. But for now, please remain quiet." Upon hearing this, the Tona brothers yelled angrily, "You bastard, you killed my trainee and still..." But suddenly he hurriedly covered his mouth. Jin smiled, revealing a triumphant grin. "So does that mean he's from your faction?" The look in his eyes was filled with murderous intent. "That's why I cut him down." Upon hearing this, everyone was stunned, thinking of a possibility. Could it be that Jin is about to start the ranked battle? The instructor gave a wicked smile. Seeing through Jin's cautious steps, the Torna brothers originally wanted to suppress Jin's arrogance, but because of a single remark from the Torna brothers, Kazin became a member of their faction. Therefore, Jin's actions were no longer simply a provocation, but the start of the ranking battle tradition, the source of the Lunkid family's pride. His move was incredibly clever. Jin shouted to the trainees, "Listen up everyone, I'm Jin Lei. You can swing your swords at me, or challenge, but if anyone harbors hostility towards me, I will not hesitate to strike them down." At that moment, Jed suddenly called out to Jin. He is a veteran 8-star knight of Lunkid. "Do you think you can be so insolent in front of me?" Jin replied without changing his expression. "Yes, because I'm not fighting against my brothers. I'm fighting against you." Upon hearing this, a cold murderous aura rose from Jed's body. He raised his hand and summoned his sword. A terrifying killing intent erupted from him, almost tangible. The sword pointed at Jin. "Explain yourself. After your answer, I'll decide whether or not to chop off your head." The boy challenged the authority of an 8-star powerhouse on his first day of school. He directly severed a man's arm in front of him, just because a man glanced at him in the crowd. But Jin's actions are undoubtedly dancing on a minefield. A careless answer could cost him his life. Yet facing Jed's terrifying killing intent, Jin remained calm and composed. "You know I'm also a freshman. Yet you still allow the upperclassmen to suppress the freshmen. I consider this an attack against me." Jed's expression darkened upon hearing this. He unleashed a fierce sword energy. The swift sword energy grazed Jin's face. The mere aftershock tore his cheek. He glared at Jin with killing intent. "Since I fear this displeases you, you should have struck me directly. Why did you attack the trainees?" Jin smiled "Because I cannot defeat you yet. Otherwise I would have drawn my sword against you. You're really not afraid of death, are you? Do you think that, because you're the master's son, I would not dare kill you? Not to accept defeat simply because one's opponent is stronger. That's not the way of the Lunkide family." Hearing this answer, Jed grinned. "You really are not afraid of anything, are you?" He then sheathed his sword. In the next moment he burst out laughing. "You're really a clueless kid. I acknowledge you now. You have the right to survive in the Lunkade family." Then he turned and shouted to the trainees, "Remember this moment. Today you have met the true members of the Lunkade family. This little demon has shown the true nature of us sword demons. Throw yourselves completely into the fight. Do not forget your true nature. Training starts tomorrow." Dismissed. And as they left, Jin left the Tona brothers a word of loyalty. "Although you are more afraid of your older siblings now, but what about in the future? Do not be so short-sighted. Consider the future more before acting." After returning home, Jin told Jilly about what happened today, and speculated that behind the Tona brothers, there should be Sister Miao and Sister Annie. After hearing this, Jilly could not help but feel worried, because the sisters are already the vanguards. But vanguards can only fight against other vanguards. This is an unwritten rule, so they cannot personally intervene in Xinanji's mission. What they can do is to use their power as vanguards to increase the difficulty of Jin's mission. This way they increase his casualty rate, and high difficulty missions are mostly solo missions. He can act without restraint on solo missions. In other words, when he's on a solo mission, he can freely use all his power. Jilly immediately understood. This is actually a good opportunity for Jin. From now on he can also accumulate merit with all his might. Not only that, then even if he takes a cat on a mission, it would not be a problem. But Jin said he would not be taking Ulikai for now, because he has other things for him to do. But until then, you all need to behave. The next day, the Jade took the Torna brothers and Jin for private training. This is special training exclusive to the Lonked people. Jin looked at the bruised Torna brothers beside him. It seems they were severely beaten by the older sisters. Then Jed told them that the family possesses a form of invisible swordsmanship and has no fixed pattern. This is what sets the Lunkade family apart from other martial arts families, and he asked if they knew the reason. Jin replied, "Because the Lunkade family members have unique qualities and perceptive abilities, and their bloodline is blessed. so they possess a physical strength beyond what ordinary people can imagine, and a sharp perception of swords. Jade said that the training to be done now is simple to the point of being foolish. He handed the three of them an iron ball. It was called a clear stone. Its name comes from the fact that it makes 3 sounds when struck. Then he began to demonstrate. Suddenly a sound that made one's scalp tingle vibrated out, but when Jed struck the second sound, it was as melodious and sweet as a nightingale's song. It turned out that the strength of striking the clear stone was different, and the sound he produced would be different. If the striking force was weak, he would produce a muddy sound. If the force is just right, it will produce a very pleasant sound. Jin immediately guessed the purpose of the training. This is a training focused on strength, endurance, and concentration. Although it seems simple, it is indeed the perfect special training for Lunk's extraordinary physique, but he felt a sense of doubt. If I just kept hacking at the clear stone, then there would be no danger at all. It could not be called the secret training of the Lunkai family, right? However, Jed raised his long sword and chuckled wickedly. There's one last sound. Jin recalled feeling something inside the stone a moment ago. A bad premonition flooded his mind. He quickly turned and lunged towards the Toner brothers. Get down. Immediately afterward, Jade brought his sword down with force. A crack instantly appeared on the surface of the clear stone. The next instant, a violent explosion consumed the space. When the dust settled, under the shocked gazes of Jin and the others, Jade began explaining. You can see. The third sound is the explosion. If the strike on the clear stone is too strong, the pipe will explode. Next, let's begin the training. What kind of swordsmanship genius could make an 8-star war god pound his chest and sigh, lamenting why he was not born 10 years earlier? Then the Zelenkade family will surely dominate the world. During the training just now, only Jin keenly sensed something amiss, and dodged the explosion of the clear stone. This demonstration was also a kind of test. But besides Luna, only they were not injured by the blast. Jin curiously asked Luna how she dodged it. Jade pondered and hesitantly said, You might be discouraged when you hear this. To be precise, Luna did not avoid the explosion. It's just that her physical strength is so extraordinary that she came out completely unharmed. When these words were spoken, Jin and the others were stunned. Afterward, Jed had them come for special training every afternoon. Meanwhile, Luna was investigating with her wet nurse about the assassination attempt on Jin from back then. The wet nurse said that, based on recent developments, Miu and Annie are the most suspicious. However, Luna still holds doubts about the two. This is because harming a child who has not yet left Hurricane City is a taboo of the Linkade family. If their plan reaches the father's ears, they would surely meet a tragic end. Could it be possible that young Master Jin lied or made a mistake? After all, Jin was only 10 years old that year, and nothing has been found in the 5 years since. But Luna's intuition told her that Jin was not lying, because Jin was very wary of her at the time. That was not embarrassment, but that he felt his life was threatened. Luna had a bad feeling. He asked his wet nurse to investigate Mio and Annie first, then she asked Jin about his recent training progress. It seemed that the training on his sixth sense she had him do should be showing results by now. Thinking about how Jin was constantly improving, Luna's face filled with affection. Watching him grow is really interesting. 2.5 hours after the training the next afternoon, Jin was being tortured by this special training and was in agony. Because if he could not control the strength of his strikes on the clear stone, the screeching sound would make his scalp tingle. Tonaguan has no idea how many times he has thrown up. He originally thought this was a training for controlling strength and endurance. But first, the destructive power of righteous energy must be enhanced. Otherwise, the fragrance cannot even meet the conditions for striking. Jade, observing the three from the side, noticed that although they were performing well, the most impressive was that little guy. Maybe he can break Luna's record. The training continued into the evening. The Tona brothers were exhausted by this point. Although Jed complained about the Tona brothers, they still exceeded his expectation. After all, they were the children of the Lunkhead family. What impressed him most was Jin's talent. But why did it have to be the youngest child? If I had been born 10 years earlier, I would definitely have become a big shot controlling Lunkai. Thinking of this, Jed painfully crouched on the ground. 2.5 months later, the first batch of missions for the Central Extreme class this year were issued, but when the third mission was read out, the list of personnel to exterminate the Warcraft Orc, the man could not believe it and froze. Only after repeated confirmation was the list read out, and the list turned out to be 10 freshmen excluding Jin. Even the Tunner brothers could not believe it. A task of this difficulty was actually given to a group of freshmen. It seems that if half of them make it back alive, it'll be a miracle. The burly man whose arm was severed by Jin advised them to write their wills. The blonde even mocked them, telling them to beg Jin to save them. Taimon could not stand their flippancy toward Jin. Just as he was about to step forward and argue, Meisha grabbed him. Meisha, with a grim expression, told him not to cause trouble. Otherwise, it would be bad if he got injured before the mission. But they read disrespect in the young master. Shut up. Have you forgotten where this is? This is the Lunkade family. We have to carry out our mission, and everyone must return safely. With our strength, we'll slap them in the face. The boy is the strongest heir of the family in 1,000 years, but his sisters have repeatedly tried to kill him. They even assign Jin extremely difficult and dangerous tasks. Only his eldest sister treats him with great affection. She not only gave him a divine pendant for protection, there was even private training sessions for each eye. He taught him the sixth sense, a skill only the 7-star knights could master. This gradually awakened Jin's ability to foresee danger. Daytona struck the clear stone during training, But he hit it too hard and shattered it. The explosion sent shards flying. They shot straight toward Jin. In the blink of an eye, Jin reacted in time, barely managing to block it. He recalled that moment. A mysterious feeling suddenly surged in his eyes. It allowed him to see the trajectory of the flying iron block. Just like a shot arrow, the trajectory was very clear. It must be related to Luna G's special training. If another iron block were to fly, he would definitely be able to precisely avoid it. At this moment, Jed interrupted the group and said that the three of them had a new mission assigned. The Tona brothers' task was to attend a banquet in the Baiman Empire. After hearing the news, the brothers felt as uncomfortable as if they had eaten a fly. Jin guessed that this was a prank the sisters played on the brothers, as punishment for their previous failure, making the two of them, who had no eloquence, attend a social event in the Baiman Empire. Next is Jin's mission. But Jazate, only after confirming the mission details did he speak again. Your mission is to assassinate Akaran, the lover of Talaris, the mistress of the Labyrinth stronghold. Even the Torna brothers were surprised to hear this mission, because the Labyrinth is a giant tower standing in the center of the West Sea continent. It's not under the rule of the Lunkade or Jippel families, and Talaris is a top expert comparable to her demigod father. To the spider nicknamed Abyss, if anyone harms her lover, she will retaliate mercilessly. Akaran is currently in the lawless Mammoth region, and is accompanied by secret palace members for protection. The Tona brothers are incredibly surprised that Jin was assigned such an extremely difficult mission, because missions in the Mammoth region are usually assigned to guardian knights. Unlike trainees like Jin who have only trained for 2.5 years, Jade also found this mission extremely challenging. He heavily questioned whether Jin could complete it. Unexpectedly, Jin responded with unwavering determination without the slightest hesitation. Yes, Jade was very surprised by the answer. He did not expect Jin to agree so decisively. He originally wanted to say that if Jin felt the task assignment was unreasonable, then he'll go and say a few words to the Vanguard. Good. I appreciate your decisiveness. The three of you leave in 2 days? Just as Jin was about to leave, the Torna brothers stopped him. They told Jin that if the situation looked bad, he should reveal his Lunkid family identity. That way no one would dare touch him. That's rare. You guys are actually worried about me? The Torna brothers suddenly realized. They stubbornly claimed they were not worried about him. They were just afraid that Jin would die at someone else's hands, and they would not be able to tease him. But Jin suddenly drew his long sword. He swung it violently towards the clear stone. They feared an explosion. But what sounded was a melodious and gentle voice. Jin turned around and gave a confident smile. Brothers, before I come back, you should think carefully about whether you choose me, or choose a sister. Jade watched Jin's departing back. He suddenly warned the Torna brothers earnestly, unless you have the absolute strength to crush Jin, do not ever antagonize Jin before that happens, because I have a premonition that Jin will stand at the peak of this continent. 2 days later, Missa and the others came to see Jin off. In order to conceal the identity of the Lunkade family, Jin deliberately changed her hair color and outfit. She asked them about their mission, but they appeared troubled. Jin asked if something bad had happened, but Meisha pretended to be relaxed and told Jin, "We're fine. We just wanted to say goodbye before we leave." Hearing this, Jin urged everyone to stay focused. It's not like we're never going to see each other again. Casualties are inevitable in missions. No matter how much you worry, it will not change anything, so just focus on completing the task at hand. Because I will definitely come back alive. Jin put his hand on Balop's shoulder. Keep it. See you next time. After everyone left the room, Jin told Ural to make sure they stay safe. Ural confident replied, "Do not worry, I'm the Great Black." Jin interrupted him. "Do not get noticed and do not make it too obvious." Ural was not happy about Jin cutting him off. Gnawing their teeth, they warned Jin to be careful. Do not be careless just because you're in disguise. Jill also urged Jin to be extremely careful. After mounting his horse, Jin smiled calmly. "I know. I'll bring you back a souvenir." The boy is a swordsmanship genius, a once-in-a-millennium talent in the family, but his sister wants to kill him in his cradle. Not only did he place a curse on him, but he also assigned him a life or death mission. However, Jin was not afraid of this at all, because he had received the blessing of the Shadow God, becoming the Shadow King who commands the Shadow energy. After accepting the assassination mission, Jin arrived at the lawless zone, Mamet. This is where the lowest-level criminals gather. Countless ruthless and vicious criminals linger here. Jin tossed a silver coin and asked the owner for a cup of water and food. A nearby thug noticed Jin's youth but strong presence, so he decided to teach him the rules of this place. Fiercely, he ordered Jin to kneel and lick his feet, but as soon as the words left his mouth, a sharp dagger slit his throat. Blood instantly sprayed over 2.5 meters. After finishing this, Jin expressively slapped the dagger onto the table, impatiently questioning the boss about how much longer he has to wait. The people around were stunned, frozen in place by this unexpected scene. But the next second, everyone burst into loud laughter. They mockingly laughed at the big man's fate, as if only N had died. This made Jin realize the madness deep inside these people. It reminded him of the words his teacher had once taught him in his past life. If he wanted to gain the approval of these outlaws here, one must show their dominance and strength. Whether in the past or this life, the teacher has always helped Jin. Jin hopes to repay her kindness in this life. A moment later, the boss brings Jin food and water, and assures that no poison has been added to the food, because poisoning is forbidden here. Seeing that Jin's face was unfamiliar, he asked if Jin had any family in the area. but Jin said it had nothing to do with him. He then pulled out a gold coin and asked the owner for information. Is there a woman named Hester here? The owner thought for a moment before confirming that he had not heard of her. Jin was not too hopeful either. He asked the owner to recommend a place that was not infested with snakes, rats, bugs, or ants. The boss told him that there is only one place like that here. That is the Moonlight Well Inn in the west of the city. All the elites of Mammoth live there, so no one dares to cause trouble there. Then Jin went to the Moonlight Well. Ekalun is a young master who has never suffered in his life. With his personality, he could never live in a dirty and chaotic place, so Jin concluded that he must be hiding there now. As expected, when Jin stepped into the Moonlight Well Inn, he saw. At that moment, Ekalun was throwing a tantrum at the guards, ordering them to immediately go buy magic potions for him, otherwise he would not stay for even an hour. But no matter how much Ekalun shouted, the guards remained unmoved, and they firmly told Ekalun their duty is to protect him, not to fill his unreasonable demands. But Ekalun would not listen at all. He stubbornly insisted regardless of the consequences. He even threatened the guards, saying he would not let them off easily. Seeing this, the guard sighed helplessly. He gave a signal to his companion behind him. Then with a swift punch, he knocked him unconscious. He kept complaining, wishing he could make him eat poison and die. He really could not understand why the master would keep such a person around. Saying that, he carried Ekalun back to the room. Jin guessed that the two guards were at least 6-star warriors. Although it would be easy to assassinate him, the real problem was how to escape unharmed afterward. And poisoning was an unwritten rule in Mammoth. If I rashly violated it, it would definitely cause an uproar. Jin was contemplating how to quietly kill Ekalun at the Moonlight Well. The next moment, he suddenly slammed his hand on the table. He came up with a cunning plan to deceive everyone. Meanwhile, a silver-haired girl, accompanied by several guards, was heading towards the Moonlight Well. Their purpose was the same as Jin's. But just as she hurried to the Moonlight Well, a fierce thunderstorm suddenly began to form in the sky. A thick lightning bolt, as large as a dragon, rushed straight toward the Moonlight Well. The sudden scene left several people frozen in place. The silver-haired girl muttered, her expression blank. Looks like I did not check the almanac before heading out today. He was once the genius heir of a prestigious swordsmanship family, but he awakened the forbidden magical talent of his family. He also simultaneously gained control over the shadow energy that dominates all things. When shadow energy and magic fused as one, and using shadow leaves no trace behind. Jin, to make the scene look more like a terrorist attack, decided to use lightning summoning magic. He first cast Shadow-Kai release. The room instantly plunged into nothingness. Then he raised his hand and charged up his lightning energy. The next moment, Jin was enveloped in lightning. Thunder summoning? As the words fell, a thick thunderbolt like a dragon struck down. The powerful force of the thunder raged wildly. Cecilis, who saw the scene outside the inn, stood frozen in place. She suspected someone from the Moonlight Well had offended a high-level mage, but it was also possible that it was aimed at the secret palace. As there were also 6 members of the secret palace and the palace master's lover among them, Cilici rushed into the ruins with her men. Although they did not care whether Karen lived or died, they had to confirm the safety of the members of the secret palace. At that moment, the thunderclouds above surged again. Immediately afterwards, a thick bolt of lightning struck again, sending everyone in the inn sprawling. Just as the guards were anxiously preparing to rush in, Silas hurriedly called out to him. The next moment, a massive bolt of lightning, as powerful as a 7-star magic, struck down. The entire hotel was blown to ruins. Silas stood there dazed. She guessed that the strike just now must have been the final blow. Looking at the wreckage of the hotel, filled with swirling dust, she could only pray that the members were unharmed. At this moment, the mastermind crawled out of the ruins like a wolf or fox. Jin was also affected by his own attack, but fortunately he had Luna's pendant, so he did not suffer any fatal injuries. Jin searched for Akaron's whereabouts. If he's still alive, now is the best time to strike. But suddenly, a figure appeared in front of him. Silas curiously approached Jin, surprised, and stared at him. I did not expect Mammoth to have someone around my age. Okay? You should leave here as soon as possible. At that moment, the palace guard came to report. Miss, the members only sustained minor injuries, but they are all still alive. Upon hearing this, Sears turned around and instructed the guard. That's great. If they are still protecting Akaron, then just kill Akaron directly. If a magician is found, immediately take them down. Jin observed the silver-haired girl in front of him. It turns out she is the daughter of the secret palace's master. From what she just said, she must be here to deal with Akaron. So even if Akaron somehow survives, he cannot escape death. Jin's current priority is escaping. To avoid being seen by Celis, he messed up his hair to cover his face, and planned to escape with the fleeing crowd. But at that moment, Sisylis raised her sword and shouted to the crowd below, I'm Celis, daughter of the palace master of the secret palace. From now on, the Moon Well will be under the control of the secret palace. Anyone who resists will be regarded as an enemy of the secret palace. These words immediately caused an uproar among the crowd. Some protested, claiming this was not within the secret palace jurisdiction. They were overstepping their authority. Hearing this, Silas's expression darkened. In an instant, she turned into a flash of light. Wherever the sword passed, everything was frozen by the cold frost. Silas's eyes were cold, her face showing a murderous intent. When did it become your place to give orders in the secret palace? Until you find that magician, none of you are leaving here. But soon after, Sears found Jin again and asked him angrily why he had not left yet. Jin pretended to be scared and said that his leg was injured. Hearing this, Sears took out a vial of medicine. You must be really lucky to survive a terrorist attack. This young lady even personally applied medicine for you. This is the kind of luck you've earned in 8 lifetimes. Make sure to repay me well when you get the chance. Then Jin smiled, waved, and said goodbye to her. But the next moment, Jin's expression instantly changed. Assassination mission completed. On the surface, he's just an adorably cute little black cat. Behind the scenes, however, is the strongest shadow dragon Jade from 1,000 years ago. With just a single breath, instantly kills a grave giant that rivals a 9-star battle god. But now he is acting as a bodyguard for a group of teenagers. It turns out that after the people of Balop were assigned the task of eliminating orcs, Jin had asked Uraka to secretly protect them. The orcs are powerful monsters that move in groups. With their strength, they would only be annihilated. But now they've already killed 18? This is because they've only encountered orcs acting alone. This boosted everyone's confidence. As long as they kill 7 more, they'll be able to return home in one piece. Wolfart will slap the faces of those who mock them. Meisha feels lucky, thinking it's because Jin has been blessed by the gods. And that's why they've been fortunate too. Little did they know all of this was orchestrated by the hidden Earl Kai. Just 2.5 days ago, all the orcs in this area were gathered together. Earl Kai ordered that from today onward they must act alone. Anyone who dares to team up will be killed. The orcs, upon receiving the order, growled and scattered. Then, Olokai, transformed into a little black cat, muttered complaints. I bet this little brat will make me do this kind of troublesome thing often in the future. Does he think he's so great just because he's a millennial contract holder? He actually dares to order me around so casually. After I get back, I'm definitely making him buy me new manga. But just then, the dull heavy boom echoed from afar. Urakai immediately became alert. He sensed a powerful presence approaching from this direction. He could not figure out where that guy had appeared from, but it seemed like he was not going to turn back quietly. Urakai spread his palm and summoned a mass of shadow energy. He then swept it downward. In an instant, a barrier was formed enveloping the area. Balop immediately sensed something was amiss, but he only felt that the sky seemed darker than before. Then Alak revealed his true form. He flew straight towards the massive figure, who's, without my permission, to let your aura leak out so recklessly. Upon closer inspection, I discovered that it was not a living creature, but a relic from a bygone era, a graveyard. But 2,000 years ago, the dragon supposedly annihilated all of them. Moreover, graveyard giants only guard the tombs of dead gods. How could it be here? But regardless of the reason, this male looked very unhappy. He opened his mouth wide, gathering dark shadow energy. In an instant, the energy gathered in his mouth like a storm. At the same time, the giant sensed the danger and immediately assumed a defensive posture. The next moment, terrifying and powerful energy burst forth. In an instant, the giant was devoured. Its massive body was torn apart by the dragon's breath in a single glance. Ural's armor flapped its wings and returned to the ground. It transformed back into human form and approached the giant. He pondered how this burial giant ended up here. He suspected it had something to do with the Jippel family. What kind of conspiracy could be at play here? After weighing the pros and cons, Olokai decided not to tell Jin about this for now. If any danger arises later, he would protect Jin. As long as Jin grows for another 10 years, he will have the strength to oppose the Jipper family. Meanwhile, in another room, a figure paced nervously back and forth until figure walked in. The fat man spoke in a panic. Sir Bixuke, a terrible thing has happened. The graveyard giant I made has been destroyed, and he is the infamous shapeshifter Bubber. The man before him was Bixu Kai, the vice commander of the Jinjilu. I've already heard about it, and I even went to the scene to confirm it myself. The one who dealt with the grave giant is a dragon, and it's a shadow dragon. Upon hearing this, Bubble was startled. Could it be that the dragon clan has already noticed our plan? It's not certain yet, but this is definitely a warning. I need to go speak with someone from the Yggdrasil family. The boy became a 5-star knight at just 15 years old. He single-handedly completed a life-or-death assassination mission. He returned unharmed from the danger zone, yet his abilities were questioned by the other members, because they heard that on the day of the mission in Schuner, a magician just happened to attack the hotel where the target was staying. So they believed that Jin's success in the mission was purely due to luck. Otherwise, with his 4-star swordsmanship, it would have been impossible for him to survive. So what? He's the young master of the Lunkaida family. We trainees are no match for him. Just then, Jin suddenly walked in front of them. The trainees were startled. Could it be that Jin heard their conversation? Jin spoke. Unfortunately, I heard everything. Kaysen, is your armor right? Hearing this, Kaysen's face darkened. He replied sarcastic. Thanks to your clean and efficient work, the medical staff said it was quite easy to reattach. Oh really? You two seem to be having a rather interesting conversation. That's right. After all, lowly people like us can only gossip about you, the young master of the Lunkade family, behind your back. Please understand. But Jin said there was no need to seek his understanding, because he was not a vanguard yet. Strictly speaking, he was not their superior, because he's Do you think dealing with me is just a matter of a single sentence because of your status? Jin says that you really disgust me. Kazee stands up direct. In my eyes, you're just someone who completed a task by luck. You do not deserve my approval at all. Jin's expression turns cold. It seems you misunderstood. I'm not disgusted by your mocking or rude remarks towards me. It's because you, as the strongest 5-star knight in the intermediate class, only know how to gossip behind my back. Jin points his longsword at Kazin. I've already said, you can challenge me at any time. Upon hearing this, Kazin once again confirmed, are you serious? When she heard Jin's affirmative answer, he immediately drew his sword. He struck at Jin, venting the anger that had been suppressed in his heart for so long. Jin felt the force transmitted through the sword. He was secretly alarmed. Kazin's strength was indeed very powerful, but compared to the enemies he would face later, it was nothing to worry about. But in the next moment, Kazin suddenly closed in on Jin. With a surge of righteous power, he swiftly struck down. Jin could only raise his sword and desperately parry. Kazin quickly seized this opening. He delivered a powerful kick that sent Jin flying. At the same time, the sword light followed closely. Just then, a mysterious sensation surged in his heart. Jin dodged Kazin's strike with incredible speed. It was just like the day he was attacked by the iron block. He could now see Kazin's attack trajectory. Facing his furious sword strikes, Jin was already able to effortlessly counter them. Kazin, unable to land a blow, became even more enraged. Jin was confident that he would end the fight in the next 3 rounds, because he had already seen through all of Kazin's moves. Facing Jin's arrogance, Kazin shouted angrily, "Young master, you really would not shed a tear until you see the coffin." Immediately his attacks became even more ferocious, like a vast ocean in storm. Determined to overturn Jin's small boat, but just after 3 moves, Jin teleported below Jin. The immense power is fully channeled into the sword. With a fierce swing from bottom to top, it instantly cleaves Kazin's longsword in half. Kazin stands frozen in disbelief. I deceive. Your swordship has actually reached 5 stars. Then a longsword is pointed at him. Jin's gaze is cold and sharp. I never said I was still at 4 stars. It's just that you do not understand me. I never fight battles I'm not confident in. Just then, the Tona brothers, upon hearing the fighting sounds, rushed over. When they saw this, they were shocked beyond belief. What's going on? Did Jin defeat you? And Jin did not explain much. He only left them with a sentence. Do not make a fuss before leaving the scene, leaving the 2 brothers speechless for a long time. Soon, Kajin reported this to Jin's 2 sisters. They were incredulous, confirming with Kazin again. Jin is only 50. His swordship has already reached 5 stars. Hearing this, Kazin lowered his head and replied. Everyone present at the time saw it. Jin's righteousness truly surpassed 5 stars. After receiving the affirmative answer, and said, is this a display of power to us? Hearing this, Mia's eyes turned fierce, his face full of killing intent. It's not against us, but against everyone in the family. When assigning Jin his next mission, we'll also put our people in there. He must not return. The boy became a 5-star knight at only 15 years old, even defeating long-established veteran knights. This news caused a sensation throughout the entire family like a storm. Everyone was in utter shock, because in the entire history of the Runcandel family, only 3 people became 5-star knights at the age of 15. They were the first family head, my father and my sister Luna. However, my elder sister Luna has no interest in the position of family head. Second brother Joshua became the first heir. With the full support of his mother, his position is now very secure. However, Jin's rise disrupted this stable situation, because aside from Luna, their father has never shown approval for anyone else. He believes Joshua is not fit to be a leader, so he has always hoped for an heir who could replace Joshua. So next, father will definitely give Jin further instructions. Although it's still unclear what kind of instructions father will give, Jin can be sure of 2 things. First, he will test Jin's ability to overcome the age gap, because Jin is much younger than all the other heirs. Second, father will protect Jin, and will not let him die at the hands of other siblings before undergoing the trial, because he is the only one after the first generation head of the family who possesses shadow key. And once the news spreads, families in various groups from around the world will come to visit, so father will definitely host a bank. Jin, make sure Jilly is prepared for this, especially to keep an eye on Ural armor. It'll be trouble if he transforms into a human and sneaks into the banquet. Ola could jump up in a rage. Do you think I'm a child? But Jilly said she would keep it in mind. 3 days, Jilly informed Jin that the head of the family will arrive at the main house in a month. At the same time, other families and groups will also come to visit. A banquet will be held then. At this moment, the butler, looking flustered, bursts through the door. Young master, you've been assigned a task, but it's at the Kalag ruins. On the other side, your mother is currently throwing a huge tantrum. She angrily scolded the vanguards present, questioning how they were handling things. How could they send Jin to Jippel's territory? At that moment, Jin walked in through the door. When his mother saw him, she calmed down. She told Jin that the mission was cancelled. He did not need to go to Kalan. With these words, this immediately caused dissatisfaction from Annie and Miao. But their mother yelled at them to shut up. She blamed them for wanting to put Jin to death. However, hearing this only made their dissatisfaction even stronger. Miao loudly questioned their mother. Yes, we do want him dead. Is that so strange? Annie, standing beside her, angrily agreed. I really do not understand why my mother is so protective of Jin, because in the Runcandel family, sibling rivalry is always encouraged, with a tacit attitude that pushes them to compete more fiercely. Everyone present was suppressed and schemed against since childhood. What Jin is going through now, they all went through. After hearing me and Annie's reasons, Mother slowly closed her eyes. Although what you said is true, our family can indeed resort to any means necessary to compete. But were you two at 5-star level when you were 15? Jin is different from you too. If you had his strength when you were younger, then I would have protected you both as well. In other words, you two are not worth protecting. Even though you have become the vanguard now, you are still so useless, so I have nothing to regret. Upon hearing this, Mew and Annie's faces turned pale and they were speechless. Then, the mother turned the gun towards the other siblings. The two of them caused this mess. You as pioneers did not stop this. Therefore, all three of you are responsible. Let you go reflect on this. Lan and Wagyu each return one family sword. Upon hearing this, the two immediately protested, but their mother coldly told them. She originally intended to confiscate all their family swords, but now they only had to return one. They should feel fortunate that after Lei Langfeng suppressed all the brothers and sisters, Mother turned her gaze towards Jin. She wondered how Jin would react after witnessing all of this. Would he hypocritically make me punish the three innocent ones because of his misplaced anger? Or would he feel smug because of my favoritism towards him? Mother quietly waited for Jin's next move. Kijin's answer was unexpected to her. Mother, I really like the task my sisters assigned to me. Mother, astonished, slapped the table and questioned Jian. Do you know what the Kalan ruins are like? But Kijin's response filled Meow and Annie with joy. I know. It's the territory of the Jipper family. My family once tried to take it, but they failed. I know it's dangerous, but I'm not going to back down because of that. He's a once-in-a-millennium swordsmanship prodigy in the family, but his sisters assigned him a suicide mission. Even his mother advised him against accepting it. Jin still fearlessly agreed. This was because not only did he possess the strength of a 5-star swordsman on the surface, but secretly he had awakened the power of Shadow Kai and magical talent. When he used both magic and Shadow Kai at the same time, he could even unleash the power of an 8th tier mage. However, his mother, who did not understand, thought Jin was just bluffing. You should know that your sisters cannot directly harm you, so they can only use their authority as vanguards to have you die on a mission. Jin remained unfazed after hearing his mother's words. He said that he would surely lose if he dueled with his sisters now. But if he could successfully complete the mission, it would frustrate them. His mother still worried about Jin's safety, since a slight mistake at the Kalan ruins could cost him his life. She then asked if he was confident. Jin smiled confidently and gave an affirmative reply, but he also made a request that if he returns alive, the famous swords handed over by his brothers would belong to him. Upon hearing this, the two brothers were very confused. They told Jin that if he wanted their swords, they could give him one right now. There was no need to risk his life by accepting the mission. After all, before father arrives, Jin must stay alive. But Jin scoffs at this. If they think staying alive is important, then why did not they stop it? When the sisters were assigning tasks, at this moment, Mother stopped their argument. After agreeing to Jin's request, she drove everyone out. Watching her children leave, the mother showed a relieved smile. She had originally been worried that Jin would turn out like Luna. That's why she had trampled on her older children's dignity in front of him. But now it seems she had been overthinking. Yet after they came out, the few of them were still at odds, and it was glaring at Jin with great hostility. What? Do you think you'll be that lucky again this time? Jin calmly responded that his luck has always been good. You would not be so composed for long, because this is not a solo mission. You would not be lonely on the road. Upon hearing this, Jin also figured out Annie's plan, but no matter how dangerous the plot is, it's powerless in the face of absolute strength. Thank you for your care, sister. See you later. A few days, Jin prepared to depart for the Kalan mission. His teammates were all from Annie's faction. They hypocritically greeted Jin, apologizing for any previous disrespect and asking for his understanding. They assured him they would absolutely not disappoint him from now on. Jin also casually responded to a few people, letting the past stay in the past. But he knew clearly that the three of them were part of Annie's faction. They wanted to take advantage of the dangerous situation to eliminate Jin. This mission was to seize 4 relics from the Kalan ruins. The Kalan ruins were originally a tribe made up of thousands of indigenous people. Hundreds of years ago, the Jicker family discovered Kalan. They killed most of the indigenous people and forced them into slavery. All because the Jippo family wanted the Kalan tribe's sacred artifact, the Spring of Power. It's a handcrafted item resembling a mirror. Just by gazing at it, one's magical power can increase to 7 stars. The Jippo family used it to create a large army of mages, but in my past life, they did not begin mass-producing mages until 10 years later. In other words, they have not found the fountain of magic yet. At this thought, Jin could not help but grip his sword tightly. In this life, he would never let it fall into the hands of the Gipper family. Afterward, they discovered that the relic they were looking for was in Warehouse No. 3. Although the raid was not difficult, there must be some protective magic there. At this moment, Jin suggested that considering the physical exhaustion from the return trip, they should rest for an hour before launching the assault. He took out a pack of beef jerky and handed it to them. After seeing the 3 of them eat the jerky, Jin put on his mask and coldly stared at them. You guys take a nap here? I'll be back soon. The others only felt a dizziness in their heads. Then they collapsed to the ground and fell asleep. Jin looked at the 3 sleeping figures, speechless. Do they really think I'm a fool? If they had acted arrogant as usual towards me, I would not have been so wary of them. However, it's only natural for dogs to obey their master's commands. The man was still chatting and laughing just a moment ago. In the next second, he transformed to a bloodthirsty, frenzied monster. Not only does he possess an extraordinary regenerative ability, but he also forces the genius Sword King into a tough battle. Jin sneaks alone into the third warehouse of the Jipper family. Although there are guards stationed here, the guards have no sense of vigilance. After all, no one dares to oppose the Jipper family. At this moment, Jin appears in an instant and takes down one person. The other guard, panic-stricken, raises his weapon and shouts. Then the spear is thrust violently towards Jin. After flipping twice and a half in the air, Jin charges at the guard. An elbow strike knocks him unconscious. Then Jin arrives at the warehouse door. It turns out to be just a regular lock. There is no protective magic on it. It seems the Jippo family does not consider this place very important. But when Jin opened the door, a warning magic circle appeared right at the entrance. Everyone thinks it's for detecting bloodline, but the magic circle's actual function is to detect whether the creature entering the warehouse is a human or a monster, so any normal human blood can pass the test. Jin used a dagger to cut the guard's palm. He did not need to use his own blood to avoid leaving evidence. Then Jin sprinkled the guard's blood on the magic circle. The magic circle instantly lit up with a red glow. Just as Jin thought he had successfully broken the magic circle suddenly erupted in a violent reaction. A dazzling red light shot up in the sky. Jin was incredulous. He clearly used the guard's blood. Why was the magic formation still activated? That means either the blood's owner is diseased, or it's not human. At that moment, the two guards from before underwent a transformation. Not only did their bodies become incredibly strong, but their eyes also emitted an eerie red glow. Jin quickly distanced himself. Simultaneously, he unleashed wind magic from his hand. A whirlwind spread, isolating this space from the outside world. He had not originally intended to use magic. Less nearby mages detect the magical fluctuations, but he could not afford to be so careful anymore. A battle was inevitable. Facing the charging monsters, Jin drew a dagger from his waist. He quickly crouched down the moment the attack came. Immediately, he took advantage of the monster's attack opening and thrust his weapon forward. The monster roared in pain. It lunged at Jin. Jin dodged. Then he drew the long sword from his waist. A powerful aura emanated from the sword, brimming with righteous energy. Seeing this, a look of terror appeared on the monster's face. They seemed terrified of Jin's righteous aura. The monster pulled the dagger from its abdomen. The wound began to heal in just 2.5 seconds. Jin was secretly shocked, because that was a regenerative ability only possessed by high-level monsters. But those two guys were still human 2.5 minutes ago. Jin wondered if they were living golems. But creating living golems is a capital offense. Could it be that the Jippo family is using this place as a laboratory to research forbidden magic? And the strength of these living golems is equivalent to that of a 4-star martial artist. Compared to well-trained 4-star knights, their attacks are much more simplistic. But to defeat them, one must completely destroy their core. Generally speaking, the core is hidden in one of 3 places: the head, the heart, or the dantian. So Jin decided to target one of them first. He could be seen holding his long sword, poised to strike. With a sudden thrust, he pierced the golem's head with his sword. Unexpectedly, the golem did not die on the spot. Its claws once again slashed toward Jin. Jin felt that the golem's strength had not diminished in the slightest. On the contrary, it had become even more violent than before. After removing its head, Jin aimed at the golem's dantian again. He plunged his sword into its body with a fierce strike. However, he did not find the core he had imagined. Now there was only one place left. The longsword instantly split it in half from bottom to top. The core then fell out. Jin thrust his sword into the core. At that moment, Jin's heart was filled with fury. They had actually used a living person as a test subject. At the same time, another golem swiped its claws at him. A cold gleam flashed in Jin's eyes. With a backhand, the longsword was thrust deeply into the body of the golem. The surge of righteous energy instantly destroyed its core. After successfully eliminating the 2 golems, Jin magic also lost effect. At this moment, a weak voice reached Jin's ears. At this point, the golem transformed into something neither human nor demon, crying and pleading with Jin to kill it. Jin pressed his lips tightly together upon hearing this. With a heavy heart, he muttered, "All right." Then he ended his suffering with a single strike. Although he did not know what kind of life they had lived before, no one in this world would willingly become a living golem, because once they transformed, they would no longer have a tomorrow. They would only be seen as expendable. He is clearly a genius swordsman from a prestigious swordsmanship family, yet he awakened the power of shadow energy and magical talent. When shadow energy and magic combine, what kind of terrifying disaster will it trigger? The reason Jin decided to use these 2 powers is that he discovered the inhuman side of the Jaipo family. They had secretly used living humans to create human magic statues. This is considered a major crime in the Empire. Jin suspects that his sister might know about the situation here, which is why she assigned him this task. But even if Jin makes the situation public, the Jaipo family will definitely deny it. Even if investigated, they will use their power to deny everything. And right now, he does not have the ability to solve this problem. So for now, he can only keep the evidence of the golem fragments. But for now, he still has to complete the task. Jin looked at the various items on the warehouse shelves. All of them were covered with alert magic. Originally, he might have had to spend some effort dispelling the alert magic. But now, with the 2 guards' living golems killed, no matter how wantonly he acted here, the Jippo family would quietly clean up the mess. Without making a big fuss, Jin gathered all his magic power in his hand. The immense magical power gradually transforms into raging flames. Then, with his other hand, he summons a mass of shadowy energy. The 2 forces collide and merge. The next moment, terrifying surge of energy radiating a dreadful power pulses in Jin's hand. With a loud shout from Jin, the flames erupt. In an instant, the relentless flames consume the entire warehouse. A few days, Annie and Miaojing were squatting on the ground, bruised and swollen. Luna angrily questioned them. Why did you send Jin to the Jippel family's territory? He's 10 years younger than you. But they retorted, asking if Luna really did not know the reason. Hearing this, Luna said, could it be that you wanted to fight a ranked battle with Jin? But in a ranked battle, a vanguard can only fight another vanguard. This is an unwritten rule. Their actions are simply a disgrace to the vanguard. Even Luna, also a vanguard, feels ashamed of them. But these words instantly infuriated Annie. Sister, you never care about the ranked matches. What right do you have to insult us here? Luna sneered. If you had won, I would not have gone this far with my words. But Jin has already successfully completed the mission. At this point, he should have already reported back to his mother. Now you understand why I called you a disgrace, do not you? From the out, you've given Jin the opportunity to showcase his abilities. Upon hearing this, the two of them were immediately speechless, unable to refute. Just as they were leaving, Luna gave the two of them a piece of advice. Jin is not someone to show mercy. So you'd better be careful from now on. Although our paths have long since diverged, you two are still my sisters. After they left, the wet nurse sighed, remarking that Luna just returned to the family and already scolded her sister. It feels like we're back in our youth. Luna, however, stated that her youth was long gone. Then she asked the wet nurse if she also felt that the two of them were no match for Jin. The wet nurse believed that in just 5 more years, even a formal duel, they would not stand a chance against young Master Jin, and this was in line with Luna's opinion. Then she inquired about the progress of the investigation into Jin's assassination. The nurse told her that Anne and Mia could be ruled out. They were still in the intermediate class at the time. They had no secrets to hide. The Tonner brothers could also be ruled out, and Mary and Yuna were also impossible. So the remaining suspects are Master Joshua, Master Deeps, as well as Master Lan and Master Wigyu, and Miss Rancha remain. Let's set aside Master Lan and Master Wigyu for now. The other 3 cannot be easily investigated, because their positions in the family are very secure. Any covered investigation could cause trouble, so Luna decided to wait and observe for now. The nurse told Luna not to worry too much about Jin. After all, Jin is safe and sound now, and his strength is improving at an astonishing rate. On the other side, Jin had also returned to his room. Ural approached and asked Jin if the mission went smoothly. Jin, however, said he had something to show them. He then took out a small bottle. It contains a golem specimen brought back from the Kalad ruins, and they told them that this is a living golem transformed from a warehouse guard. When Urok heard this, his pupils immediately shook. Last time he discovered the cemetery giant, and now Jin had encountered a living golem. He had no idea what the Gippel family was up to. Urok turned his head and seriously confirmed with Jin. After receiving Jin's affirmative answer, Olokai, with a serious expression, asked Jin to find time to go with him again. He wanted to personally ask the Jipper family what they were planning to do, and originally, because of the living golem incident, Jin would have felt uneasy about going back to the Kalag ruins. But since Olokai would be accompanying him, it would be much safer. He could also take the opportunity to search for the Fountain of Magic. Anyway, no matter how much trouble they caused, the Jipper family will suppress everything. Thinking of this, Jin agreed. The next day, Jin attended the special training as usual, but at this moment Jed told Jin that starting tomorrow, he no longer needed to attend any training, because the family head would give him new instructions next week. The Tonner brothers, who were standing nearby, were wide-eyed in shock. I guess father would not be appointing Jin as a provisional vanguard, right? A provisional vanguard is someone who, before becoming a true vanguard, leaves the family to accumulate reputation. Once they leave, the family will not provide any assistance. They must rely entirely on themselves. But when Jin heard this news, he clenched his fists in excitement. At that moment, he felt incredibly happy. Finally, he would not have to worry about the opinions of others. He is free to grow his power. The boy is a genius swordsman from a renowned martial family. He is also the youngest son of the Lenkade family. At just 15 years old, he became a 5-star knight. The family even held a grand banquet with 1,000 guests. Everyone who visited was either rich or noble. His demigod father even led an army to attend. Originally, his father had planned to meditate in seclusion in the Black Sea for 10 years. I never expected that this youngest son would always interfere with his training. Khan also praised him. I knew from the time in Hurricane City that Jin was no ordinary person, but I never expected Jin to be this strong. After brief silence, his father told Khan, it's because he is filled with fighting spirit. When we first went to Hurricane City, I could see the determined look in Jin's eyes when he was 7. The way he provoked his older siblings when he first arrived at the Sword Garden also left a deep impression on him. It was as if Jin was born knowing how to defeat his opponents. That's why his older brothers and sisters constantly tried to suppress him, repeatedly trying to kill Jin. But Jin always returned unscathed. Swordsmanship had even reached 5 stars, but what surprised him most, yet Jin single-handedly defeated the warriors of the Wolf tribe, proving to his father the value of the beliefs he held onto. 2.5 days later, his father arrived at the Sword Garden, and the family members had already been waiting there. His father expressed his gratitude to his mother for her hard work. His mother told him that the children had grown up, all the preparations had been taken care of by them, but his father coldly said, if they had really behaved well, I would not have had to leave the Black Sea and come back myself, because he knew the guests visiting today would only act according to his mood. They did not fear his children. As he passed in front of Jin, He noticed the famous sword at Jin's waist. He had given these two swords to Lan and Weigi. So he asked them why they had given the swords to Jin. The two broke into a cold sweat at his words. Embarrassed, they explained that Jin had taken the swords from them, because they had agreed that if Jin completed the Kalan mission, the swords would be his. Their father could not help but laugh heartily after hearing this. He patted Lan on the shoulder and jokingly said, "Do not you think Jin is quite cunning? Sometimes I even wonder if he's really my biological son." Night. Jin and his father stood side by side at the window. This was his first time attending the family banquet. Although in his previous life, he had attended a few family banquets as well. He could only hide in the shadows like a sinner. Unexpectedly, after he died once, he became the protagonist of the banquet alongside his father. His father told him that the Runcandel family rarely holds banquets, and only does so when something truly worth celebrating happens. In other words, Jin had achieved something truly remarkable, and compared to the banquet held 7 years ago, this one had 200 more people. In other words, the Runcandel family's power had become even more prestigious than 7 years ago. Although my father has been fighting in the Black Sea all these years, the power of the Runcandel family continues to grow stronger. The reason is simple. It's all because my father is the only living holy knight. But at the same time, this also means that once my father is gone, most of the people present today could turn against the Runcandel family. And the Runcandel family's strength will be far weaker than the Jippel family. By then the Jippel family will reign supreme. Then Jin suddenly said something unbelievable to his father. If the family is suppressed by the Jippel family to the point of no return, then I will leave the family. Hearing this, his father's face instantly darkened. Then Jin continued to explain, if it's because the father is not in the Runcandel family anymore, that only shows that the next head of the family is utterly incompetent. He would not let himself be killed by that family head. Speaking of this, Jin changed the subject and asked his father, how much leverage do they have on these people? Before coming here, and Jin returned the sword he had taken from Weigi. In exchange, he asked him to show the family commission contract for inspection. Jin saw the various crimes of each family listed on it, thanks to Runcandel. These people can now stand here with their faces thick enough to live. Otherwise, just for what they've done, it would be enough to kill them countless times. He only glanced at them, and already mastered so many weapons besides swords. Compared to his father and mother, he has mastered even more. If the head of the non-sacred knight family wants to lead the family forward, he must possess exceptional negotiation skills, using these handles to protect the family. After hearing this, his father felt that the Jippel family must have similar handles as well, but Jin smiled confidently. The Jippel family would not use these handles to blackmail people, because the image of the villain belongs solely to the Runcandel family. The Jippel family will always play the role of the good guy. In short, if the next head of the family cannot make full use of them, I will leave the family without hesitation. Then I will prepare to take revenge on the Jippel family. Hearing this, father stroked his chin and agreed with Jin's idea. After all, only the living can take revenge on their enemies. Father looked at Jin. The other children would never dare to make assumptions about the decline of the Runcandel family in front of him. They would only say some presumptuous words and complain, but Jin calmly and frankly revealed his inner thoughts. Thinking of this, he could not help but smile with relief. It's a pity that he only had Jin in his old age. He possesses Luna's talent, Mary's ambition, and Dip's fighting spirit, 10 to 15 years at most. This is how long he can protect his position as head of the family. During this time, can Jin change the order of succession? Then father told Jin to wait for his summons after the banquet. Upon hearing this, Jin could not help but clench his fist. It seems father is about to appoint him as the provisional vanguard, but just then, a servant rushed in a panic to report. A guest who had not been sent an invitation has arrived. Father's expression stiffened upon hearing this. He immediately guessed the identity of the visitor. Could it be someone from the Jippur family? As the heir to a prestigious swordsmanship family, Jin must not only possess unparalleled swordsmanship, but also have a sharp mind and a silver tongue to control the world. Just before the banquet began, his father received the news that their rivals, the Jippur family, had shown up uninvited. He immediately thought how audacious they were. They came in a group of 5. The first one is vice family head Andrew. Father instructed the servants to let the other 4 in, but Andrew told him to get out immediately. Then father asked Jin if he thought his actions were excessive, but Jin said he felt quite satisfied. If Andrew felt humiliated and led the Jaipur people away, that would be ignoring the head of the Runcandel family's orders. Such a thing is absolutely forbidden in the sword garden. My father would have reason to cut off his legs, so Andrew will certainly do as his father says. Then, the banquet officially began. Father appeared on the second floor with Jin. He introduced Jin to everyone. His son, born in his later years, was exceptionally gifted. It made him very happy. So here he wants to thank Jin. After he finished speaking, a round of applause erupted below. Then his father informed everyone of the rules of the banquet. If anyone gets drunk and causes a fight during the banquet, they will be escorted by the guardian knights to the dueling arena. The loser must obey the winner. But the winner should not make things too difficult for the loser. After all, this is still a banquet. Jin looked at his father beside him, although his father spoke gently. In reality, this was more of an enemy gathering. Figures who controlled the major forces across the continent were gathered here. Their past grudges and enmities were intricate. If it were just an ordinary banquet, it might only involve comparing power. But this was a banquet of the Runcandel family. No one dares to break father's rules. Even if they cannot kill their enemy, they can beat them up severely. Because this is the crazy Runcandel family. After father's announcement, he also let Jin join the feast. If you have someone you like, drag him away. But you cannot choose someone weaker than you, unless he insults you in the Runcandel family. Jin smiled confidently. I know. And there's one more thing I absolutely cannot lose. Father said it was a necessity. Otherwise he would take back everything Jin possesses now, including Bradaman and his wet nurse. Watching his father's departing back, Jin could not help but sigh. This was the first time he'd had such a conversation with his father, just like an ordinary father and son. But Jin's goal in this life is not to be a likable son. He aims to surpass his father. After the Jin family banquet, Tona's brothers cautiously approached Jin. They greeted Jin stiffly. After some polite exchanges with the brothers, Jun leaned in close to the brothers' ears. Speak to them softly. Say a few proud words, then you can leave. The two brothers nervously stammered their agreement to Jin. Just then, a man with long hair approached Jin and greeted him. He was about to introduce himself, but Jin immediately identified him. You're the first vanguard of the Khan family, right? Seeing this, the Torna brothers wisely left. But just as Jin was talking, a large hand suddenly slapped Jin on the head. I've always been curious what kind of brat. Reached 5 stars in swordsmanship at 15. Nice to meet you. I'm ugh. Jin suppressed his anger. He responded with a very gloomy expression, but Yuge still was not the slightest bit polite, pressing for more. He pointed out that although Jin was from the Runcandel tribe, it was not enough reason to show him a cold face just because he did not use an honorific. In the world of martial artists, he was the senior. Although Jin as a junior was impressive, he was still being rude. Upon hearing this, Jin turned his head and looked at Ugg coldly. Listen to me carefully. Your words and actions just now were an insult to me and to everyone who respects me. If you like this whole senior-junior thing, you should be more careful. Most of the people here are your seniors, right? You should have seen how your seniors treat me. Admit your mistake and apologize to your seniors. Ugg broke into a cold sweat upon hearing this, unable to say a word. At that moment, the people nearby stepped forward and tried to smooth things over. I knew your big mouth would get you into trouble one day. The young master spared your life. Stop whining like a woman. Just apologize, please. Seeing this, Ugg bowed and apologized to Jin and the seniors. Jin accepted his apology. After Ugg left, Luna came to Jin's side. She had also witnessed Jin's exceptional demeanor. You really know how to make enemies. It would not hurt to be a little more adorable like an ordinary child sometimes. But Jin replied that he now represents the Runcandel family. Luna then asked if Ugg were to challenge you to a duel. Then how are you going to handle this? He's a 6-star martial artist. Upon hearing this, Jin told Luna, if that's the case, then the Tuco family head and the elders will definitely come to mediate. Hearing Jan's analysis, Luna could not help but marvel. He even calculated this. Did you learn about noble intrigues somewhere? But perhaps because Jin's talent is so high, and his mind is so sharp, that's why someone wanted to assassinate him in Hurricane City. Thinking of this, Luna decided to remind everyone just like Jin would. She pulled Jin's head over and nestled it against her. Luna wanted to use this intimate gesture to show everyone that Jin is her beloved younger brother. That way people would hesitate because of it. Everyone present was shocked upon seeing this. It was clear how much Luna, the 9-star war god, cared for her younger brother. But there was one person who nearly ground his teeth to dust upon seeing this. He even bit down so hard that he tore his handkerchief. Lord Bishukai really envy him so much. I also want to cuddle up with Lady Luna. And that person was Booble from Jinjiro. The vice captain Bishukai saw Booble's reaction. He dismissed him dismissively. At this moment, Bixukai's sister, however, made him respect Booble. Maybe Luna's important to him. And thanks to Booble pushing her over, she can comfortably watch this enemy party from here. Upon hearing this, Bixukai sighed and helplessly covered his face. Meanwhile, the protagonist, Jin, after sending off the people next to him, he began searching for members of the Jippel family. At that moment, a wine glass was thrown down heavily in front of him, and the badge on the girl's head looked so familiar. Silas was glaring at Jin with a sinister look. May I invite the rising star of the Runcandel family to have a drink with me? It's an honor to meet you, Master Jin Lin. With a single innocent smile, the boy captured the heart of the secret palace lord's daughter. She thought Jin was just an unknown nobody. But 2.5 years later, upon their reunion, he had transformed into a genius swordsman from a renowned kendo school. What kind of sparks will fly between them? And upon discovering that Jin was the same knave boy she had saved, Silas with a dark expression invited Jin to have a drink with her, but she pretended it was their first time meeting Jin. They chatted and exchanged pleasantries. This left Jin completely confused. Sears had clearly recognized him. So why did not she mention the mammoth incident at all? After all, he had only gotten a little dust on his face, so there's no way she could not have recognized him. Just then, Silas suddenly changed the subject. Right? Master Gin, I have something I want to ask you. Is your leg injury healed? Silas stared at Gin with a cold expression, causing Gin to feel a pang of anxiety. Gin responded with a forced smile. Thanks to a certain big shot who personally applied the medicine for me, I recovered so quickly. Silas sarcastically remarked that she did not realize Jin had such a thick skin, and made Jin explain to her why he was at the Moonwell in that time. Her men still have not found the terrorist who used magic. She wondered if the boy she let go might be the arsonist. Jin, however, said Silas was overthinking it. The fact that the Runcandel family forbids the use of magic is known worldwide, but Silas believes that Jin was carrying out a mission at the time. Maybe he thought he could not complete it, so he hired a mage. Because only members of the secret palace were present, it was worth it for the Runcandel family to intervene. Therefore, she must demand an explanation from Jin. Upon hearing this, Jin said that this is just your speculation. There is no actual evidence pointing to him. Seeing Jin being so stubborn, Silas laughed angrily. Since you intend to keep playing dumb with me, then I will not be polite. I'll duel you, beat you up fiercely, and then spit on that hateful face of yours. But Jin said that his father warned him not to duel anyone weaker than himself. Hearing this, Silas glared at Jin resentfully. But then Jin said, if you insist, then I can also promise you that, my lord. Moments later, the two arrived at the dueling arena. Jin ordered everyone except the medical personnel to leave. He then instructed someone to bring 2 usable swords. He then looked at Silas, who was preparing nearby. After midnight, the onlookers will flood into the dueling arena. After all, she is the daughter of the secret camp's master. If Jin defeats her in front of everyone, it would be too cruel for her. At this moment, Saris turned around and asked Jin to promise her one thing. Jin would have to tell her everything about that day at the Moonlight Well. Jin agreed without hesitation when she heard this, but he also made a request. Silas acted as if she had never seen herself that day. With that said, she drew her sword and charged fiercely at Silas. However, just at that moment, Jin noticed that there were actually ice crystals falling in front of him. The next second, Silas' sword imbued with frost struck. This was a skill unique to those with the bloodline of the Endormar family. 1 Bingjian. The sword is covered with a chilling frost-like power. Wherever the blade passes, everything is frozen. Jin did not expect that Silas would use her secret technique right away. For him, the young son who has not been taught the family's secret arts, this is too difficult. However, Silas could not care less. With 1 strike, she sent Jin flying. Then a stronger wave of cold air erupted. The relentless attacks continued, aimed at Jin, but Jin effortlessly deflected them all. The 1-star difference in strength between them gradually became apparent, but Silas still had confidence in defeating Jin. As long as she used the 3 styles of the mirrored ice sword, it was enough to offset their 1-star difference in strength, but her stamina and strength were far inferior to Jin's, so she had to finish the fight quickly. During the battle, Jin also figured out Saris' swordsmanship. Although she can use the 10,000 ice swords, her offensive and defensive techniques are completely inferior to his. Therefore, Saris will definitely use a stronger secret technique to win next. But Jin does not know how strong Saris' secret technique is, so he also needs to use his own secret technique to counterattack, and he masters several of the strongest techniques from Hurricane City's secret transmission. At this moment, Cyrus suddenly gave a mysterious smile. It's over. Jin Runcandel immediately launched the 3rd form of the 10,000 ice sword, Avalanche. The sky was filled with frost, overwhelming and heading straight for Jin. The ice crystals, containing powerful righteousness, instantly cut across Jin's face. In the center of the storm, Cyrus showed a confident smile. She felt that victory was already within her grasp. However, Jin suddenly curled the corner of his mouth. This immediately unsettled Silas. She had clearly unleashed an avalanche. Even a 15-year-old 5-star genius should find it hard to withstand such an attack, but why does she feel so uneasy? Suddenly, Jin's sword pierced through the wind and snow right before her eyes. Silas quickly sidestepped to avoid Jin's surprise attack. However, Jin's longsword could not withstand the immense force. Cracks rapidly spread across it. Jin sensed something was wrong. He hurriedly told Silas to get away. The next second, a violent explosion erupted from Silas's frost. The genius young master Runcandel versus the secret palace's little princess, who will ultimately prevail. In order to win against Silas, Jin attempts a secret technique for the first time. But, unexpectedly, his longsword could not withstand the power of the technique and exploded on the spot. Jin, frantic with worry, rushes towards the center of the explosion. The power of this attack was simply something Silas could not withstand. The power of this blow was far beyond what Silas could withstand. If she had not avoided it in time, she would have either died or been severely injured. When he saw that Silas was unharmed, he let out a long breath of relief. However, at this moment, Silas was overwhelmed by endless self-doubt. She could not believe that she had avoided the attack out of fear of death or injury. As the daughter of the secret palace, she could not accept this reality. Jin quickly approached and asked about Silas's condition with concern. At the same time, he noticed that something was off with Silas's mindset. Although she had heard Jin's warning at the time, but she still wanted to inherit Jin's secret technique. But when faced with life and death, she still hesitated. Even though her pride was strong and she valued her reputation, she was still too young. She could not suppress the instinct to survive. Seeing Cheris falter, Jin softly comforted her. If it were him, he would have backed off too. And you would have reminded me loudly as well, so you do not have to blame yourself too much. After listening, Sears quietly took out a box of ointment from her pocket. Then she applied it to the wound on Jin's face. This is my way of repaying you for sparing my life, because this life is one you gave me. I will also return to my former greatness, so you do not need to worry about me. After saying that, she turned and left without a word. But today is our first time meeting. I'll see you tomorrow. Jin watched Khanla's retreating figure and was left speechless for a moment. The next day, Jin noticed that there were far fewer people at the banquet. This meant he could finally meet with the people from the Jipper family. I heard that the visitors are all between 15 and 20 years old. Their age is about the same as his. This is a good opportunity to compare their magical abilities. Although he still wants to ask about Kalam, he decides to wait and investigate with Uruk later. With Uruk's help, Finding the fountain of magic will be much easier. It will also prevent the Jipper family from creating a magical army in the future. Just then, a familiar cat appeared before Jin. He froze, wondering how a cat could be at the Runcandel family banquet, but upon recognizing it as Ilika, his anger surged. Silas looked at the nameplate on Ilika's collar. She asked Jin if he had obtained it. The moment Ilika saw Jin, it instantly bristled. Jin's eyes flashed with uncontainable rage, as if about to swallow Ilika whole. Just then, a voice suddenly came from behind Jin. As long as I followed that cat, I'd be sure to find you. A white-haired boy happily jumped in front of Jin. I finally found you, Jin Runcandel. I've been thinking about you every day. When Shalis and Ulikai heard this, they were taken aback. The amount of information was overwhelming. They immediately turned and left, not wanting to interrupt the passionate exchange between the two. The young man pointed at Jin. He told him that the first character of his name was B. He asked him to think about who he was. However, Jin claimed that he had no memory of him at all. Hearing this, the young man slapped Jin on the shoulder. He had not expected Jin's memory to be this bad, so he decided to directly tell him his name. My name is... But Jin suddenly interrupted him. I know your name is Bellington Jeppel. Impatiently, he slapped his hand away. He told him that the reason he kept pretending to have no memory was that he did not want him to get close. But why is he so clueless? Upon hearing this, Baladin simply showed a look of sudden realization. This left Jin speechless. This silly... Will he really become a 9-star mage at 30? Then Baladin proudly boasted to Jin. His magic had already reached 6 stars. It was even 1 star higher than his swordsmanship. Jin was stunned upon hearing this. He could not believe it. Baladin, the most talented mage in the Jipper family, did not become a 6-star mage until she was 18, but Jin had expected that by the time he turned 18, his magic would have at least reached 7 stars. This made him wonder if Baladin was hiding her true strength. But when he saw the proud look on Baladin's face, he dismissed the idea. This allowed Jin to objectively confirm his own potential. That is, after becoming the current head of the Jippel family, the person who would stand at the pinnacle of magic would be him. Then he asked why Baladin and their family had not received an invitation, yet still came to attend his banquet. Upon hearing this, Baladin grinned. It's because I pestered Uncle Andrew and insisted he bring me here. Jin was a bit speechless upon hearing this. It was just a child throwing a tantrum. Does that mean Vice Head Jipper agreed to step into enemy territory? Jin waved his hand, telling him to stay put here and behave before leaving. Baladin immediately felt neglected. He mentioned that he knew Jin's father had shown mercy toward his uncle. He once again placed his hand on Jin's shoulder. Baladin promised Jin that he would not show up without notice in the future. He would attend the Jipper family banquet, but would not harm him. Jin glanced. What if I launch a terrorist attack? But Baladin just grinned. I will never go back on my word. Even if you launch a terrorist attack, I will not kill you. If a fight happens, I will not strike at you. Jin looked at the strange guy, unsure of what to say for a moment. He left with a remark, "You're such an idiot," and turned to leave. He had another problem to deal with. Since earlier an unpleasant guy had been staring at him, Jin approached a figure standing behind someone. Is there something you want to say to me, guest? The person was none other than Booble from Kinjiro. Unexpectedly, Booble asked him a question. Will Milady Luna appear again? He then took out a book and handed it to Jin. He wants Jin to pass it on to Luna. It contains a poetry collection he wrote for Luna throughout the night. It is filled with his deep affection. As soon as Luna sees it, she will understand his feelings. He then showed a foolish, lovesick smile. Perhaps in the near future, I will call you little uncle. As soon as these words were spoken, Baladin immediately sprayed the red wine he had just drunk for 2.5 meters, and Jin's anger instantly reached its peak. He grabbed the book from Booble's hands and tore it to shreds on the spot. Then he viciously stomped on it. Jin's anger was so intense he was about to explode. Booble not only casually mentions his sister's name, but also dares to say something about his brother-in-law. He truly has no respect for the Runcandel family at all. Immediately, he ordered the Guardian Knight to drag this guy to the duel arena, but Booble, facing imminent danger, still showed no remorse. He shouted that he was just expressing his affection. Jin could not treat him like this. Besides, he is still a guest of the Runcandel family. Where's the proper way to treat guests like this? But Jin turned a deaf ear and dragged him into the dueling arena. He threw him to the ground. Jin's expression was stern. He suddenly ripped off his jacket. I will fight with my bare hands. The boy only had the skill of a 5-star swordsman, but he dared to challenge a 7-star strongman. He even comprehended the heart sword, a technique only 8-star knights can use during the duel, and the reason a fat slob shamelessly wanted to become Jin's brother-in-law. This enraged Jin, who dragged Babel to a duel. This scene happened to be witnessed by Bishop and Kay. They could not understand why Babel had provoked Jin. Even Silas and Alaka found it baffling. I cannot figure out why Jin would pick that guy. Bubar was the most baffled of all. He suspected that Jin had discovered his involvement in the Jippel family's assassination attempt 5 years ago. Then the host announced the duel participants. Just as Bubar was about to introduce himself to Jin, an angry fist slammed into his face. Jin stared coldly at Bubar. I do not want to know what someone like you is called. Booble did not intend to be polite with Jin anymore. His fist erupted with righteous energy as he slammed a powerful punch down. The punch landed hard on Jin's face. The onlookers could tell Booble was a 6-star warrior. It also seemed like he was quite skilled in martial arts. If Jin loses this fight, it'll be humiliating. After landing the hit, Booble immediately laughed arrogantly and mocked Jin. With your strength, you dare challenge me to a duel. I will make you cry and beg on your knees. But before he could finish his sentence, Jin's large hand slammed on his face, then his fist rained down like a violent storm. He was instantly beaten to the point of crying for his mother, his blood boiling. He had no strength to fight back. At this moment, the onlooker Maela muttered in dissatisfaction, saying, since the winner has been decided, why is young Master Jin still such a brutal opponent? Brother, as Bubar's friend, do you intend to stand Edley by? Bishop K wanted to explain that it was a fair fight. However, Maela did not give him a chance. He stared intently at Bishop K. Brother, as your sister, I'm very disappointed in you. I hope you can teach young Master Jin a lesson. Upon hearing this, Bishop Kai sighed helplessly and touched his forehead. He had no choice but to agree. He walked straight towards Jin. Young Master, let that guy. How about we have a match? Jin tossed Bubala. Then he'll face and prepare to fight Bishop K. He's a 7-star knight of the Ives family. Win or lose, Jin will gain something. Bishop K family's swordsmanship is well worth his study, because their family's former head was a strong person even his father acknowledged. Jin now turns his gaze to Maela. This willful young lady for her own selfish desires? He actually does not hesitate to make things difficult for his own brother. It's really laughable. It's obvious that Bishop Kai cares deeply for his sister, so Jin can understand his feelings, just like how older sister Luna loves him. Therefore, he cannot tolerate anyone insulting Luna. Jin warns Bishop Kai to control his subordinate's mouth. Unexpectedly, Bishop Kai tells him, that guy is not my servant. He's traveling with us. Did Buber say something wrong? Hearing that name, Jin was shocked. Only now did he realize that the fat man was a famed shapeshifter Bubar from his past life. But at the same time, more questions flooded Jin's mind. What is the relationship between Bubar and Bishop K? In my past, there was no news of Bubar's connection to the Ives family when he was arrested. Did Bucci know he was a shapeshifter? But he could not afford to think about it now, because he was facing a 7-star knight. He had to concentrate on the battle. The next moment, Bucci almost instantly rushed in front of Jin. In just one glance, Jin immediately knew that Bishop Kai's strength was beyond the 7 stars. His brilliant swordsmanship could even rival that of Uncle Jed. With Jin's current abilities, he could not even perceive the trajectory of his sword strikes. As soon as the battle began, Jin found himself at a disadvantage. The onlookers all believed that Jin would not last much longer, but Baladin did not think so, because only he knew that the people of the Lencade family grow stronger when faced with a challenge. If the swordsmanship of the Ives family is like a cunning serpent, then the swordsmanship of the Lencade family is like a charging rhinoceros. Even if its horn break, the rhinoceros will never stop charging. At this moment, Bixu Kai's longsword sliced through Jin's chest. However, Jin's counterattack was easily avoided. Jin felt that Bixu Kai had not even used his full strength. But it's also true that he fought Bishop Kai evenly, despite being a 5-star fighter. Although Jin felt he was nearing his limit, he began to experience that mysterious feeling again during the duel. So Jin closed his eyes and focused on feeling it. Vast righteous energy surged from the sword. Bishop Kai also wanted to end the fight at this point. He held his long sword and suddenly lunged towards Jin, but facing Bishop Kai's attack, Jin remained unmoved. The next moment, accompanied by the crisp sound of shattering, Jin's longsword was instantly swept aside and shattered, finally coming to a stop in front of Jin's neck. The residual force of the sword's energy caused Jin to instantly lose consciousness. At the same time, a small sword scar appeared on the side of Bish's neck out of nowhere, though it only cut through his skin, but it left him utterly shocked, because in that instant, he felt as though a sword was about to strike off his head. How powerful is the genius swordsman from a prestigious swordsmanship family? With 5-star strength, he challenges a 7-star powerhouse. He even comprehends the Sword of the Heart, a technique only accessible to 8-star knights. During the duel, he was an inch away from decapitating him. This left Bixikai in disbelief, because at the moment his long sword shattered, he felt a sharp pain in his neck, as if an invisible sword was about to sever his head. If Jin's reaction had been even a tenth of a second slower,